All right, guys. So you are watching chemo drip into your child's port right now, and there's not a single thing that you can do to stop it. You're standing in a hospital hallway on the oncology floor holding a mediocre, lukewarm cup of coffee, doing math that no parent should have to learn. Millimeters, neutrophil counts, and how many days until the next scan. You've read my chart at 2 a.m, having to use ChatGPT to understand the lab values, and you've wondered if what you feed him could somehow undo the toxicity of the very treatment that's supposed to save him. No one is there to answer these questions for you. Not really. Biodynamic Wellness is not from a textbook. It came from a mom named Susan Johnson, standing exactly where you are standing now, when her son Kicker was 2.5, and the only plan anyone handed her was chemo for years. So she built something to run alongside that plan, not instead of it, never instead of it. Real food, built for a body in active treatment, supplement guidance that's safe alongside of chemo, and a home reshaped around healing instead of just getting through the day. You are not failing your child by wanting more than one plan. You're exhausted and you're still showing up, and that is the whole fight right there. Susan teaches a free info session herself, sharing how to help your child thrive through and beyond cancer treatment, and she'll professionally answer any of your questions on a call. If you're in the middle of this right now, come and sit in on it. We'll attach the links in the description of this episode. If you guys need access to this awesome service because you're going through the hardest time that you've ever experienced in your life, check it out if you need it. Don't do it alone. All right, guys, I'm here to tell you about Barbell Apparel. Barbell Apparel is not just a sponsor of the podcast. They are a long-term partner here at 3 of 7 Project, which means that we have been using their apparel for years. Today I have on the Anything flannel. This is a great outer layer for you guys. Fall's coming. It's going to start cooling off. This thing, like all other Barbell apparel items, moves with your body. It's comfortable. It's got good style. It's well made. They stand behind their products. 4-way stretch with a hidden chest pocket. Really good snaps instead of buttons on this flannel. But it's not just the flannel from Barbell Apparel. They also have running shorts, gym shorts, shorts to work in, out on the range. They have the most comfortable jeans on the market. And if all of that doesn't mean enough to you to go check out Barbell Apparel at barbellapparel.com, I want to let you guys know that I vouch for who they are as a company, as people, the individuals behind the brand that we've been able to work with throughout the years have been first class all the way. So if you need some new threads, go check them out at barbellapparel.com. You won't be disappointed. Thanks, guys.
It's a good area because you're not far from like Chattanooga.
That's where Courtney lives, just outside of Chattanooga. Yeah.
Nice. I went up there and to the same place you went I think you went the year before, but I went this year, and it was for that big church's beast feast, that wild game dinner. That was cool. Those guys were awesome. Hunter Heides, I think, was like the younger guy helped me around, but his dad had ran that wild game dinner for like 30, 40 years or something.
Yeah.
It's like 50 years old.
Yeah. Did you speak up there?
I did, yeah.
Awesome, man.
Yeah. It was cool. It was just to see like their heart for men and how many men showed up to that thing. It was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I like those wild game dinners, man. They're fun. I get to speak at quite a few of them every year, and If you can tell some hunting stories
Yeah.
on the front end
Yeah.
and like warm them up to you,
Yeah.
they'll be engaged, you know?
Yeah. I told my wife, because it probably happened the same way when you went, but when I went, they kind of like kept me in the back for a while. And you don't really know what's going on out in the auditorium. And then they're like, hey, right before we go live, we like go upstairs, and like all these old lady prayer warriors just like lay hands and pray for you.
Yeah.
So they kind of like sneak you upstairs, and then like those ladies praying for you was the coolest thing ever. And then they just kind of like take you out on stage. So my wife is like, how'd it go? I was like, I don't even really know what I said. Like after like the prayer team prayed, it definitely felt just kind of was like Holy Spirit after that, which was cool.
Yeah. So did you grow up in Montana?
I grew up in Billings, Montana, so just a few hours east of Bozeman.
Okay. What is what is the church like out there? Because I think it's a lot different than the church experience in the South. But I know there's a lot of awesome brothers and sisters in Montana, because I visited Andy Stump. I don't know, it was back last winter or something. And dude, I ran into so many brothers right there in Kalispell.
Yep.
I mean, like 10, 15 dudes I got to talk to, and they wanted to talk about faith. And I was really surprised that there was that much presence, like from believers in that place, because it's so remote, it's so rugged. And what I've found is that places like that, at least in my travels and in my past experience, these people and these men and women who live in these really remote, rugged places with hard environments, and they're, you know, in a sense, they're having to really carve out their living. They tend to not have time for faith.
Yeah.
That's what they all like. That's been my experience, but it seems like it's thriving up there, man.
It is interesting because Montana, especially Bozeman, that area, Missoula, Kalispell, there is a side of Montanans that's very individualistic. And so I'd say the faith component in the Rocky Mountain West is strong and is thriving. But you can even feel the difference between faith experiences in the South and in the Rocky Mountain West. And I think a lot of that is due to like the heritage of individualistic people that had settled the West. It was people that kind of went out on their own, wanted to be on their own, wanted to be alone, kind of like packed up their family, jumped in a wagon and moved across like Indian country to settle the West. So a lot of Western people are really individualistic. And even when I travel to the South, the second you land, you can often feel the uptick in community. Like the community is a lot stronger down here. And I'd say like the brotherhood is a lot stronger down here. And that is more of a gap in the Rocky Mountain West. And you'll even see it with activities like people ski alone or snowboard alone or climb alone, hike alone, hunt alone.
Yeah.
It's a lot different where the community components are stronger down here. And then you got the Bible Belt down here, which we don't have. So you see a lot more big non-denominational churches. You don't see like the Baptist church on every street corner.
Yeah.
You just see kind of a couple big non-denominational.
Hunting, I think, is to really drive home the point you're making about kind of the difference in culture. Hunting is totally different down here than it is up there. You talked about how like Western hunters, they don't mind hunting alone. I saw that when I was in New Mexico on my first elk hunt. I saw a lot of young dudes that were out there and they were just soloed. I mean, they were just out there by themselves.
Yeah.
And hunting down here in the South it's a cultural thing, but it's also a community thing. Like hunting in the South, the funnest way to hunt is to join a hunting club. And especially if you're part of a club that runs dogs, that really is a community effort. Like that's a club effort. But even if you're part of a club in an area that doesn't allow you to run dogs and stuff, man, it's just, I love it. Like I have a deep attachment to the hunting culture here in the Southeast, because you're at hunting camp with all these guys who you've probably been hunting with for decades, and you're going out and then you're coming back and you're sharing all these stories together. And if somebody kills something, everybody who's there in the camp will go out and help track and drag the deer out. And it's also something that, like, down here, and I don't know about, I feel like there's a lot more new hunters out west, or at least hunters going out west to chase elk and stuff like that, because it's become such a big thing. But down here, man, hunting is something, anybody who's really into it, they learned it from their daddies, their granddads, their uncles. There's a heritage down south, and like there's a way you do it, and there's just something about it that's unique. But I think it drives home the point you're making about how the community aspect of culture in the Southeast is different than it is out west.
It's really fascinating, because I think everything we're talking about does in a lot of ways connect to like the loneliness epidemic we're seeing in men, and nationally, men are struggling with like legit brotherhood, where they're actually like living life together with guys. And when that goes away, men really struggle. And we do see that a lot in the West because of that individualism. And even recently, I am a big fan of Joby Martin, and Joby Martin has the Church of 1122 in Jacksonville. And Joby is a phenomenal pastor calling out like biblical masculinity. And so I listened to him a lot, and they actually just recently planted a church in Bozeman, Montana called Bridger Church, which we've been going to. And it was funny because I was listening to Joby's podcast, and I listened to it a lot, and I was listening to a lot of his sermons. And I was listening the day he said he was planning a church in Bozeman, and I like hit the brakes in my truck and I was like, why would like a church from Florida plant a church all the way in Montana when we have plenty of churches and they have plenty of churches? And I actually had his number, so I texted Joby. I was like, what's up with this church in Bozeman? And he's like, oh, there's this guy named Todd that is from our community that just really feels strongly that that's where he's supposed to be. So my wife and I met with Todd, and the first time we met with him, he said he could feel darkness in Bozeman, and that's why he felt called to be there and start a new church there. And we left that meeting, and my wife was actually pretty offended. She's like, why does Todd feel like Bozeman is dark? And that is especially interesting because in a lot of ways, Bozeman is like a postcard town of America. I mean, it's beautiful, very clean. It is very well kept, but the darkness that like Todd was experiencing is a lot of people are kind of like wearing a mask. And so it is affluent and it is well kept, but people aren't being their true selves, and they're not being vulnerable, and they're not open with like their struggles. So it's very much like because of the affluence, it is like they're chasing the comfort and the affluence and wearing a mask, and they're not living life together. And so he felt like what he experienced in the South was you actually live life together with your brothers, and he wasn't seeing that in his visits to Bozeman. And so he really felt the Lord calling him there. And we've actually been attending that church since its inception, and you can feel kind of like the Southern hospitality that he brought out of Florida to Bozeman, and it has been incredible. But we see that across the board. Even when I started hunting, it was with my dad, and that was much more about, like, you go to the wall tent camp and you hang out with your uncles, and everyone is like chopping firewood and getting the stove ready, and you weren't as obsessed with what you were going to kill on that trip. You were more extremely excited about that trip because you were going to get to hang out with all your uncles in the mountains. And it really seemed to shift kind of, I mean, it's been a phenomenal thing for Mountain Tough when it kind of shifted in the early 2000s in the Rocky Mountain West to more of like a mountain athlete mentality.
Yeah.
But when it shifted to a mountain athlete mentality, a lot of that kind of community aspect of it was stripped away.
Yeah. And I think in a sense, that shift in the hunting culture, and it's a recent shift in the hunting culture, has even affected to some degree even whitetail deer hunting and stuff down here in the Southeast. I have wondered about that. Do you see this kind of explosion in terms of popularity for hunting Western big game species? Do you see it as a good thing or a negative thing? Because it exploded. Like, it's almost like it grew so fast that well, nowadays you have almost every year I see dudes are dying out there hunting. Like, they're making stupid decisions. They're getting out in storms. They don't know their gear. They have no business out there, man. I mean, you see it. You see these guys. I mean, it's just in the last few years, these incidences have started making headlines, and most of these are young dudes who probably didn't grow up. It's not part of their heritage like it is yours, out there learning from the old timers how to actually be in that environment, navigate the weather, and just the brutal, the environment out there is brutal.
Yeah.
Like, I rode the Colorado Trail race 2 years ago, and dude, I can't tell you, and I'm an outdoorsman. And I can't tell you how many times on the Colorado Trail I was up in the San Juans, and there's nothing around you, and these storms are blowing in, and even somebody as experienced as I am, I'm thinking I'm about to get crushed right here. Like, I don't know if I'm going to survive this.
Yeah.
It's brutal. So, like, this explosion, what is the positive to it? What is the negative to it from your perspective? Because you're a lot more plugged in with what's going on out there in the hunting scene than I am.
Yeah, I'm really kind of torn about it from a couple different angles. In a lot of ways, I think it is a very good thing. From a couple perspectives, Mountain Tough has always communicated that, like, if you're a guy out there struggling with depression or anxiety or any of those type of symptoms, one of the best things you could do immediately is just go into the backcountry for 3 days without your phone. So there is this whole side of positives from getting people into the backcountry. And it is the mother nature, it's the vitamin D, it is the unknown, and there are going to be surprises the mountain throws at you that you just can't plan or prepare for. So it's going to test how you can adapt and pivot. And in so many ways, that is incredibly good for people, especially like in today's society where we're just consumed with comfort, and comfort is killing so many of us.
Comfort and convenience. Yeah.
Yeah. That at least the mountain gets you out and is going to test your mindset, your mental toughness, your grit. So there are incredible positives. It gets people to disconnect. And then just the wilderness alone does a tremendous amount of healing for a lot of people. And then when you add hunting on top of that, it's kind of like adding the steroids to that healing power, because the guy needs like a dragon to slay and a mission to live and a battle to fight. And when he's out backcountry hunting, especially like archery September, high country elk hunting, he has a real big battle to fight and a dragon to slay that's not easy. So that component is helping a tremendous amount of people. And it also is a catalyst. It's scary enough of a catalyst that it is getting them to really change their lifestyle. And so that's one of the coolest things that I get to see on the Mountain Tough side is we've always viewed Mountain Tough as this positive bait and switch. And so we know that someone is going to draw a Colorado elk tag and they're going to be intimidated by the high country, and maybe they had a friend that got crushed by the elevation and came home early or almost died. But now they have this Colorado elk tag and they're going to sign up and start training. And for us, we know now we have a chance to make that person a better father, a better husband. We can speak into them spiritually, nutritionally, just because there was a catalyst that got them to sign up. Now their whole life is about to change, even though they thought they were just going on one hunt. And that's what we see regardless if they use Mountain Tough or not. But like if someone from Georgia is going to hunt high country Colorado this year, they're going to generally start rucking, start working out. They're going to start shooting their bow every evening. Maybe they're going to shoot their bow with their family. And so these real good positives do start brewing. And after the hunt, usually those things continue where they feel better and they don't want to give it up. So from the positive side, I like that. From the negative side, the backcountry is getting busy. The backcountry is busier than ever before. And it is harder to get Western tags than it's ever been before. And then there is people are pushing the limits extremely hard just for kind of like the social media side of it, not for the pure heritage side of it. Yeah. So where that heads and like where that's going to head for our children is where I get a little bit uncomfortable, because the amount of, public land we have has to be really protected for our children to enjoy what I've had the chance to enjoy. But the amount of people kind of heading into there is going to reach a limit from the hunting perspective here pretty soon.
Mm-hmm. I feel like most people who are just getting into like Western hunting, you talked about the fact that they might be intimidated if they draw that tag for the first time. Maybe they're going out there into that high country for the first time. But I would say also they probably don't even know what they ought to be intimidated by. Mm-hmm. They're thinking they ought to be intimidated by maybe the steep climb or maybe the altitude. And it's like the steep climb and the altitude's not going to kill you, dude. That's not the thing you should be intimidated by. You should be intimidated by the weather. You should be intimidated by the potential health problems that you might encounter. You should understand how to do basic wilderness first responder type stuff. You should be intimidated by your lack of knowledge about your gear. What happens if you get soaking wet and the temperature drops 30 degrees and you don't understand that hypothermia will take away your cognitive function, and then you will die very quickly if you don't understand this stuff, man.
Yeah.
And you guys at Mountain Tough, you and your team, you have built in my opinion, the most comprehensive health and fitness platform on the market today. And when the public, I think, sees Mountain Tough, they see it as something that, man, if I'm not a hunter, this isn't for me. And I get that the foundation, the spirit of it was geared toward hunters and new hunters and bridging that gap for people coming from here in Georgia to do their first Western hunt, preparing them. Like, I love that you're providing this resource, but I think it's what you guys have built is so much more comprehensive than just for hunters, because, as a matter of fact, I am a member of Mountain Tough, and I'm not a Western hunter. I may go out every now and then and do a Western hunt, but like, it is the thing that is going to be guiding my fitness throughout the rest of this summer and this fall. I've canceled my gym membership. I have a son now. It's not practical for me to make an hour round trip drive to the gym. I have a farm. I have a place. I have equipment where I can do it at home, maximize my time, and become more efficient. Mm-hmm. And so for me, as an ultra runner, as an athlete, as just a father, as a husband now, like, I'm using Mountain Tough to guide my fitness. And the reason it's so much different than every other program, for instance, some sort of, CrossFit athlete app that you can join into and it gives you your workout. Mountain Tough is providing you not only the programming for your fitness at whatever level you're starting and however high of a level you want to go, but it's also providing you like substance for your mindset. It's speaking into the spiritual part of the man. It's focused on developing the human body, soul, and spirit. I think it's a magnificent creation, dude. And it's bridging that gap. I love that. I wish more people would understand like what you guys have built and what you have to offer to human beings.
Thank you.
So I just had to get that off my chest because people need to know what this resource is. They really do. You said something earlier, and I was thinking, we like to get out in the backcountry, man. And you were talking about how that independent spirit out west, like how that evolved from the families and the men and women who packed everything up and traversed this continent essentially to go to an unknown place that wasn't settled, that wasn't established. They had to literally carve their way across this continent and find a place to raise their family and to hopefully survive. And they had to fight for it.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about how, for men like us, that is something that we will never have the opportunity to experience? Personally, that bothers me.
It does bother me too, because it is wild to think about what many of those families did and went through. Even you see glimpses of it all over the West, kind of like driving around on hunting trips in the middle of nowhere, where you'll come across the old homestead properties. And the old homestead properties now, even in 2026, some of them in the remote areas of Montana are like a 3-hour drive to a 200-person town. So when they were active homesteads in the early 1900s, late 1800s, those families were like 6, 9, 12-hour horse rides just down to one town that had a post office was their only sense of community. And then, they're at that homestead with no running water and no screens, no devices, no technology, no power. So the difference in comfort 100 years ago versus, what we're seeing now is astronomical, like the difference of comfort that a normal family has now versus what they had then. And just the like grit and the resilience that it built. And I'm a huge fan of like the Lewis and Clark journey and going through their journals. And when I go through their journals, and one of the greatest ones is called Undaunted Courage, and Stephen Ambrose went through the journal and rewrote it in a way that like we can read it today. And when you read it, there is nothing that I could think of that is that challenging now, except like us going to explore Mars or something like that on foot. You can't, there's nothing we can do to like experience the same sort of challenge that those individuals went through.
Yeah, and that's the essence of what we're like the opportunity that we are missing now as men is it wasn't that long ago that men had the option to go and actually make new tracks, like to see things that no other white man had seen before. Mm-hmm. So like you say, I agree with you. I think about that. Like, what is the frontier now for human? And a lot of people say that, yeah, space is the closest that we can get to it. I almost think that's a ridiculous aspiration for humans. I know there's all this talk about space travel, and we're trying to find ways. I don't even think we landed on the moon. I think that was all just a scam. Like, what's the closest we can get to experiencing that part of being like an explorer, like this true adventure here on Earth for you? What is the place? What's the closest we can get to that? Because I'm always trying to find that, dude. Like, that's why I went and rode the Colorado Trail, but like, I'm on a trail, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in some pretty remote spots, but like, I'm on a trail. Bunch of people been through here. Like,
yeah,
you know, I go, whatever, you know, you go drop off in a big canyon somewhere in New Mexico on an elk hunt. Yeah, man. But you're 4 miles from the road, man. Been plenty of people walked up and down through this canyon.
Yeah.
What's the closest we can get to like true adventure? Like, hey man, I'm probably walking right. Like, probably, maybe no one's ever even stepped on this piece of ground right here. What has that been for you?
I love that question, because last year I took my oldest daughter to Alaska, and the reason that I took her to Alaska was because my dad took me when I was young. And when
how old was she when you took her?
She was 12.
Okay.
So we went, and another guy from Mountain Tough Lyle brought his daughter, who was 11, and then I brought my dad. And I wanted her to, the big reason for that trip is I wanted her to get that feeling that you can only get in a few places in the world where you have no escape button. And when you get in those no escape button situations, everything in your mindset has to shift.
Yes.
And that's what I wanted her to experience, because that was my experience growing up on those fly-in Alaska trips.
At what age did you first experience that with your dad?
I was 12 also.
Really?
Yeah.
And you still remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I did 12. At 12, I did fly-in drop camp Alaska fishing with my dad, where they drop you at a lake. They kick all your gear out of a Cessna 180 before you even blow up your raft or unpack anything. The plane's taking off. And when that plane takes off and you're just sitting there with a pile of gear, is really when you get that feeling of like, hey, this is on us. You know, they're going to pick us up 7 days later downstream at a rendezvous point, and if we're not there, then we have some problems. So that's what I wanted her to feel. And we went last year on a caribou hunt, and we flew to Anchorage and then to Kotzebue, Alaska. From Kotzebue, which is a tiny little village kind of hub town, we flew 140 miles from there in the Super Cubs and Cessnas. So when we left Kotzebue, we traveled an hour and a half by air, low, so you can see the ground the whole way. And I didn't see a single shanty, a single cabin, a single road, not a single power line, no human footprint for that hour and a half flight. And then they dropped us at a lake, left us there for 9 days, and picked us up 9 days later, and we just caribou hunted out of that camp. And it definitely like achieved the mission I was looking for of, you know, it's on us. if there's a medical emergency, it's on us. So your cognitive function has to be operating at a high level. So you try not to make any mistakes. And it is like an intimidating feeling, but it also is extremely fulfilling as well, because everything else of the world goes away. And really, in those types of environments, it's just food, water, shelter.
And you get so sharp, man.
Yeah, incredibly sharp.
You're paying attention to everything. You're paying attention to the clouds. You're paying attention to the temperature. You're paying attention to what your body's telling you. Mm-hmm. You're paying attention to the sounds that the animals are making to give you some indication of some shift that might be happening. You're paying attention to every single step that you take, because you know a broken leg could cost you your life.
Yeah.
It sharpens you on a whole nother level, man.
Yeah, you know that, like, especially some sort of lower extremity injury. I mean, you're going to have a rough go when you're that far. Like walking out or anything like that is going to be extremely challenging. And it's pretty mind-blowing. Like in that environment, there was footprints from the natives. So in that environment, we had teepee rings near our camp, and we had these old rock walls that were on the left and the right side of this little lake we were camping on. And the ancient civilizations that lived there would chase the caribou in between those rock walls so that they would swim through the lake instead of going around it and up the mountain. And they wanted them to swim in the lake so that they could then take sealskin kayaks in and spear them while they're in the lake. And so we're sitting there in our Cabela's tent thinking we have it hard. And then you think about the sealskin canoe guy spearing it a couple 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And, they were just navigating that country by foot, following those caribou herds around several hundred, 400 or 500 miles from their winter range to their summer range. But if they didn't follow them around, they didn't have enough to eat to survive. So it's cool to get in those kind of environments. We also have hunted in Kyrgyzstan for ibex, which is in, all those mountain ranges that connect into Afghanistan, Tajikistan, and Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan. And there I felt certainly a little bit more in danger of something getting really hard if something went bad than I did in Alaska. Because in Alaska, you have an interesting dynamic now, which I find really fascinating, that I didn't experience so much as when I was a kid. It was just starting to pop up. But in Alaska, you now have the SOS button.
Yeah.
And the SOS button is gonna, you're gonna ping your inReach, and it is fascinating because on that Alaska trip, we actually, you go in with an inReach, and if someone is having an extreme medical emergency, you can hit that button, and the Air Force search and rescue is going to come get you in Alaska. And there were a couple Russian volcanoes going off last year when we were in there. And so what we saw is there was guys stuck in camps that were ahead of us that couldn't come out. And then you get guys stuck in Kotzebue trying to go in that can't go in because of the Russian ash. They can't fly in. And so you see camps that are out there, and they were supposed to come out on day 9, and now it's day 10 and they're still in there. Now it's day 11, they're still in there. And we saw a few of those hit the SOS button. And so they're kind of sitting in camp in a nice tent, and they have some extra mountain house, and then they have a bunch of caribou meat.
Yeah, you're a day or two late on your pickup. That's not time to hit SOS. Well, you're speaking to the inexperience of people going in the backcountry right there.
Yeah, so we saw it several times last year.
And did they come for them?
Yeah, because if that button is hit in Alaska, Air Force search and rescue is notified, and they go in with the big planes and the big choppers, and they get them.
They're coming out of Anchorage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's tens of thousands of dollars, but it was a really good, just kind of thought experiment, seeing that and watching that on just what a little bit of adversity will do to people. And sitting in there with like 100, 200 pounds of caribou meat, and you just need to wait for that ride. But it was in their mind, it was the unknown.
Yep.
It was like, I don't know if this is 13 days or 15 days. I don't know if it's 15 days or 17 days. That was enough panic to, get the big chopper in there to get them out. So
wow.
But it's all connected. It's all connected to just how comfortable life is now.
Yeah. So in Alaska, you still have that tether. Like you're still tethered to the first world. Like that SOS button or that sat phone is still a tether to you. That's the thing, man. You don't get the sense that no one is coming to get me, because someone will eventually come and get you if you just press this button. But out in where was it? Kyrgyzstan. Obviously, that SOS probably doesn't work the same way out there as it does in Alaska, right?
Yeah, we had it, but I honestly didn't know if you hit it, I don't know what.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you hit it, probably not much happens over there.
That's what I'm thinking too. Yeah. So you felt more of that true sense of adventure and responsibility there than you were able to feel in Alaska?
I did, yeah.
What was in terms of the remoteness of where you guys were? Was it just as remote as some of these areas you can get into?
Yeah, it's gnarly over there. So like that hunt, we land in Bishkek, and then you jump in a Land Cruiser and do like a 12-hour drive. And then you start from a backcountry camp after that Land Cruiser ride, and then you go horseback. But the mountains over there are unreal. Brutal. The peak that we could kind of see behind our camp, it was 40 miles up, but it was at 19,900. And that peak separated Kyrgyzstan from China. So on the back of it is China, and then on our side was Kyrgyzstan. And then their mountain horse culture over there is like a real pride of that country, is their ability to do some crazy things in the backcountry on horses. So they you go with the locals, you have to go with the locals there, and they throw you on a horse, and it's like chest deep river crossings 9 or 10 times to get back into these valleys. In these valleys over there, you definitely started to feel like you're entering valleys that not many people have hiked in a long time. At the same time, when you ride through the valleys, we saw a bunch of burial grounds that were 1,000 years old from like Genghis Khan type eras. Wow. So you're really in a whole different world and a whole different civilization. And on that one, I just felt like I was going to get killed on a horse the whole time, because you're going straight up, straight down through the river, straight up, straight down. And they much more use their horses like a tool there, like a hammer, where I've done a lot of Rocky Mountain West horseback hunts, and our horses are very well taken care of.
Horse is a pet.
Yeah. There they will like whip them straight up a mountain as they're pouring sweat, and the horse is just like trying to take its next breath. So very different culture and the safety of the horse. And then you have the language barrier. So you don't really know exactly what's going on or where you're going or why you're doing different things, because you can't get on the same language.
Yeah.
So I certainly had a lot more fear there of something going sideways.
What was the dynamic there between you and the guys that were essentially your guides? Because there's the language barrier, and are the guys that were basically helping you navigate that terrain and showing you into these places, were they also hunters? Like, what was the dynamic? Were you guys having to make all the decisions in terms of the hunting aspect of the trip, or were you leaning on them for that?
Yeah, they aren't hunters, which was really interesting because it's more of that third world environment where with the poverty kind of stricken across the country, the individuals do the guiding don't have the opportunity to hunt themselves like they would in America. And so they're just looking for any sort of job, and getting hooked up on one of these camps gives them a job. And so they all talked about how like they're just doing a few of these hunts so that they can get money back home to their family, and how they're not able to do any hunting themselves. And even Kyrgyzstan, it's interesting, like only 300 ibex can be harvested a year. And so the country is about the size of South Dakota. So it's a smaller country, but they manage that like population of wildlife extremely well. But a few of our guides were employees at like a national park nearby that actually snuck off their park job to come guide us. And they talked about like if they got caught on a hunting trip, they were going to get fired. And so a whole different culture, which leads to some funny dynamics when you're on the actual hunt. Cause like we had a friend that brought a compound bow, and they had never seen a compound bow before.
I'll bet.
And so, you know, the first time you pull a compound back, it's hard. Like even if you're a really strong guy, it's just awkward and you don't know if it's going to like pull through.
Oh yeah.
And so, like a guy doing target practice after we get to camp, then the locals want to shoot and they're not able to pull it back. And so then they thought like the guy was a superhero because he could just pull it back every time.
Mm-hmm.
But then ibex, kind of like moving out in front of us at a 200, 300 yards, they'd be like, shoot, shoot, shoot. And you're like, well, it's a bow. It only shoots like 40, 50 yards.
That probably seemed like a really stupid decision to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they move with you in kind of a pack. So it made it hard to sneak up on anything too, because you always had like 6 or 7, 8 locals with you, which in the West, you know, like when you ride into camp together on horses, but then if you're going to sneak on a big mule deer in the West, after you and your buddies discover that mule deer, you're going to sneak on it alone or with one other guy. But in Kyrgyzstan, like everywhere you went, there would be like 8 guys behind you because they all stick together, and there's kind of like they'll have like a water guy and a snack guy, the horse guy, the fire guy. Mm-hmm. And even when you tried to tell them like, hey, I'll go at this one alone, they really wouldn't let you. So it just like different cultural dynamics that you kind of had to navigate through.
Yeah.
But it was fun. It was fun to like experience it.
Did you get to kill on that hunt?
I did. Yeah. Yeah. We were all successful, and I felt like where we were at, there was just ibex at the top of every peak. It just felt like you were kind of in this pristine environment with no human footprint. We didn't see a single other human in the backcountry other than like our party. So, you know, no roads. The civilization over there that lives in the country is very nomadic. So they run their cattle, sheep, and goats in the high country in the summer, but right before fall starts settling in, they bring all of those animals out of the high country and settle down in the valleys. And then when we show up in the fall, so it's like the back country was completely open.
Dude, that sounds like an awesome experience. And yeah, you know, I think it answers the question that I asked well, like, how do you experience, at least as close as you possibly can, to what our forefathers were able to experience? Mm. And you almost can't do it on this continent anymore because of that tether. because of that SOS button that those guys in the camp were hitting when they were freaking 2 days late on their pickup, which is absolutely ridiculous. You almost have to go overseas to experience it.
Mm-hmm.
What does a hunt like that cost?
So those ones are actually fairly affordable. Ibex hunt is about $5,000, and then you're going to have your travel and logistics.
Yeah.
But compared to like a guided Western hunt, it's a reasonable hunt. They call like Ibex and Aoudad the poor man sheep hunt, because any sort of sheep hunt like in Alaska or Canada or the Yukon now is astronomically expensive because they can only do so many hunts per year. But traveling for Ibex or like Aoudad in Mexico is the poor man sheep hunt, where it's a lot closer to like getting you under $10,000.
Okay. Yeah, that's not bad at all, man. You'd probably have more in your travel than you have in the actual hunt.
Mm-hmm.
For me personally, I think the nearest I've experienced to like truly being on my own would be in the Yukon territory and on the Yukon River, the paddle that me and David did.
Was that a race?
Yeah, that was a race.
A big adventure race?
Yeah, it's actually going on right now. It's the longest kayaking race in the world. But yeah, you would get in some places. So you'd get some places in there where it's probably the first time I ever experienced true silence. Like you'd get into some of these big canyons that the river was flowing through, and you'd realize you'd be in these canyons for like at one point we were in this canyon for pretty much an entire day, and nothing worked. The sat phone wouldn't get anything. The spot tracker wouldn't get a signal because the canyon rose just straight up out of the river, and it was so high on both sides. All you could see was a little strip of sky above you, so you couldn't get any satellite communication in or out. And that silence in those canyons on that river, and there's something about traveling, there's something that hits, that like resonates in my human spirit about traveling on a river.
Mm-hmm.
It just hits different. But when you experience that silence for the first time, and again, I'm a backcountry, I'm an outdoors guy, man. But like no airplanes, nothing.
No light pollution.
No light pollution. Well, it never got dark there that time of year. But just experiencing that silence is a whole new experience as a human. That's wild that we live in an age where to experience true silence in the wilderness, which isn't complete silence. When I say silence, true silence, I mean the absence of human noise. Mm-hmm. Because there's always noise in the backcountry. There's the flow of the river. There's the water. There may be some bird or animal or something. But silence meaning the absence of human interruption. Experiencing that for the first time at freaking 37 years old. That's wild. That's our reality that we live in, man.
Yeah.
And that was really, to be honest with you, the first time I experienced it for any prolonged amount of time. And it's weird. It's a weird experience.
Mm-hmm.
It really is, man. And that's the closest I've been. And I hope Alaska never changes. Maybe it won't. I don't have high hopes. Seems like the white man just wants to go and develop everything and just destroy everything. But I'm thankful that we at least have access to that type of environment. Even though there's still that tether, I'm thankful that still exists for men like us to go and explore. I'm going on my first Alaskan moose hunt here in a couple months.
Nice.
So I'm looking forward to experiencing that.
Does it fly in?
I have no idea. Eberly Stock just hit me up and said, "Hey, you guys want to go on a moose hunt
Sweet.
in Alaska? We got some guys that want to take you." And I said, "Yeah, let's do it."
That's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm pumped about it.
I wonder if it is like the call to unknown territory and the call to explore and go into lands that have never been seen before, and like our desire and our craving for that is almost the way the Lord built us for our ability to pursue like the divine assignments he needs us to pursue. Like that tendency for us to want to break into challenge in our desire to step into the unknown. The reason that like we want that and we desire that, I think is like a God-given trait. And I think God gave us that not so much so that we'll explore like wilderness that's never been explored, which is a factor, but I think God gave us that so that when he presents us with the divine assignment for our life, that we have the courage to step into it, because that divine assignment is going to be
unknown.
Yeah. And fraught with challenge and adversity.
I think that is part of it. I also think that instinct that is in us, that the Lord put in us, also ties back to the very beginning when the Lord commands us, his unique part of creation, human being, the one thing in creation that he created in the likeness of his own image. He commanded us, go and take dominion of the earth. Like, I think that's where that instinct in us to go and explore, it's been perverted, because now man wants to go and they think taking dominion means subduing the wilderness, tearing it down, and building something for man's comfort and convenience. I don't think that is originally when God commanded us to take dominion of the earth, I don't think that was what it meant. It didn't mean go and subdue it. It meant go out into it and make it better. Like make it better, like steward what I have created. There's a verse in Revelations that, Revelation, people get mad at me. I always say Revelations, but the book of Revelation, that the risen Christ, Yeshua, says, I will destroy the destroyers of the earth. And I think about that quite often, man. Like that is what Yeshua says. I will destroy the destroyers of the earth. And dude, like when like a piece of trash blows out the back of my truck, it bothers me, man.
I got to stop and grab it.
It bothers me, dude. But yeah, I think our instinct is connected back to the original reason one of the original reasons that God put man on the earth. It was to steward his creation. It was kind of our original purpose.
Yeah.
It really was.
I think it's all connected, because I think that popularity and push you see for like the Western hunting that we started the conversation with is because a lot of men in like today's culture haven't found and pursued their divine assignment. And because they haven't like found and pursued their divine assignment, there is a hole in their heart still. And so they're trying to fill a little bit of that hole in the backcountry.
Yeah.
Which is fine, because I think like just getting into the backcountry allows them to start seeing life with a little bit more clarity. But I think the like societal problems we're seeing nationally as a whole are because a lot of men aren't stepping into their assignment. They're avoiding it a little bit. And so the more that we can get people like the courage to step in and walk in that, the better, because I think a lot of them are like the answer to someone's prayer is you doing what God called you to do. So we may never know when that is or what time frame that actually comes into fruition, but someone out there praying for something that needs to change, it takes someone to walk into assignment to eventually lead to that prayer becoming true. Because God wants to use us, not because he needs us, but because he wants us to partake, just like we would want our own children to partake.
Yep.
And I think that that's where this like strong desire for challenge and adversity and the unknown is rooted in. But we need to take that challenging step to actually walk into it. And that challenging step to walk into it is more challenging than ever before because of the pursuit of comfort. And most of these things that are going to require men to step into to answer these prayers are going to be very uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable from the perspective of like you're going to be cold and not have enough to eat, but you might have to quit a job and move and do something different, and you might make a lot less, but it's what needs to be done, and it's what God is asking us to do. And I think that that's where we start to see some breakthroughs of getting guys into the mountains, because you start to realize that this like snare of comfort isn't as cool as we thought it was, and you can kind of get that clarity when you get in those spaces where there's no noise. And in those spaces there's no noise, you start to get ideas that you've never had before. You start to hear things you've never heard before, and you start to realize that like sitting on a big couch in an air-conditioned house watching Netflix isn't as important as I thought it was. And so maybe I can try a new job, or maybe I can live in this different city to pursue this thing that I just can't stop thinking about.
Man, that's another piece to this, I think, too, is maybe you even actually experience and interact with fear for the first time. Like real fear, like not fear of I may not, make as much money next year as I want to make. Not fear of like, oh, I hope the power doesn't go out. Not fear of what somebody at the gym or at church or on social media might think or say about you. Think about how many men are out here right now who have never experienced or interacted with real fear. The fear that comes when you have to step out into the unknown. And what does that look like in real life? That looks like you stepping into that divine calling, as you said. What stops them from doing that?
Fear.
It's comfort, and it's also fear. They think they understand fear. You think you understand fear. You say, I got plenty of things I'm scared about in this life. Like whatever your biggest fear is in this life, you might realize when you step into a remote environment for the first time that your biggest fears are manufactured. Like you're gonna be okay if you don't make $150,000 next year.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
You're gonna be okay if somebody says something mean about you on social media. Like you're gonna be okay. But like experiencing and having to work through and manage and use fear. Like real fear. Like if I do the wrong thing, when I'm on that river, when I'm going through that canyon, my teammate was paralyzed from the waist down. We're going through this canyon. I know I'm going to be in there for a day. I'm in the middle of the Yukon River. And I realize that if we capsize this kayak and the boat gets away from us, we cannot climb up out of the river because the canyon walls are sheer on both sides for the next 60 miles. And if we capsize this boat, I can't get out of this water. And this water is so cold that over the course of the next 60 miles floating down this river, I am going to die from hypothermia. That's really something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
And learning how to manage that, and then how to take that fear and how to use it to sharpen you in a way that you've never been, to sharpen your senses in a way that's never been done before. Think of how many men have never experienced that, Dustin. And probably the majority, and I'm not putting down people and the things that you think that you think really matter. I get that, dude, because there's plenty of those things in my life that still exist. You know what I mean? But you have to have these experiences to where you interact with that real fear and you learn what it is, how to manage it, how to navigate it, and how to use it. Then you can step into that thing you might be called to do, you know?
Yeah, and I'm sure you're like me where walking through your biggest fears is one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me. So having the fear that you just can't shake, and then walking through that fear, whether it's financial or business or life or marriage or outdoors, like you don't want to walk through your greatest fear, but when you do and you realize it's not what you thought it was going to be, it didn't have the results you thought it would have, that's like one of the most freeing feelings in the world. But you have to get in these situations where you have to walk through that. Because what I see a ton of right now is, I think when I look at like the American society, we see the unsaved population and the saved population. In the saved population, it appears that there are a tremendous amount of people that have kind of heard what God is calling them to do. So they've felt the nudge, or they have felt the Holy Spirit call them into something, or there's something they just can't stop thinking about, and then the fear binds them up right at that moment. And usually it is like the fear of provision, or it is the fear of man. So both of those things, they tend to lead to disobedience, whether it's delayed obedience or them just not doing what they know God is asking them to do. And so like the fear of provision, is God going to provide? Am I going to be able to pay my mortgage? Or the fear of man, like what are others going to think? What is my family going to think? Both of those fears are binding them from doing what they know they're supposed to do.
Yeah. Or the fear of losing your identity. I think that's another big thing that stops people, is relinquishing your identity as whoever you think you are. Because whatever the Lord calls you into, you know, the Apostle Paul tells us, he says, well, I've become all things to all men. To the weak, I'm weak. To those under the law, I'm under the law. To those without the law, I'm without the law. I've become, what is he saying there? He's saying, I've relinquished my identity completely.
Yeah.
By the way, Dustin, you're not talking about this from theory, okay? And I think that we should really tangibly share part of your testimony to just reveal to people that we're not two dudes sitting here talking about all of this real good sounding stuff because we sat around and thought about it, or because we read some book from Gary Robbins or David Goggins, or like, no, you're not talking about this from theory, because you left a corporate high-paying job that you went to college, you went into corporate, you were living that life, and you left all of that and stepped in to a calling that the Lord put upon you and your family for a season of your life that forced you to relinquish your identity, that forced you to walk into something that was completely unknown, a place that was completely unknown, and that forced you to serve day in and day out some of the most probably broken-hearted people that are out there.
Mm.
I mean, you left this country, you left your identity, you left everything that you had worked hard for in terms of your college career, your education, your paycheck. You left all of that, and you went to Uganda, and you served orphans in an orphanage and taught them and nurtured them and encouraged them for how long?
Well, about 2 years.
2 years. I cannot, look, brother, you've got more experience in this than I do, because I've never done that.
It's wild.
Like, talk to me about that, dude.
Yeah, it's wild thinking about it after kind of everything we just discussed too, because it was exactly what we're talking about. It was God calling me, and then me being struck with a little bit of fear, but then having enough affirmation and confirmation moments to pull the trigger on that. And so I think that is something that is an important part of the story, is like for me in these divine assignment type situations, they have kind of always felt like the Lord just hits me in the head with a 2x4 and is like, here it is. That doesn't happen to everyone. I think it happens a little bit different for each person. But when that 2x4 hits me of like, here it is, you're going to need to shift gears and go here, or you're going to need to transition and go here. That's when you're going to like sit in that situation of fear. But for me, the way that I often am able to overcome that is the Lord usually kind of tells you what he wants you to do, and then he's going to show you a few pieces of affirmation and confirmation. And maybe that comes from something you see, or something that someone tells you. Someone will tell you something, and there's no way they could know what you're thinking about doing. And I had enough of those moments to step into the Uganda decision. But just like we were talking about it as well, the fear of provision and the fear of man were two huge fears at that time. So like the leaving the corporate job and going to a missionary salary, I tell people all the time that like the combined married household IRS tax form I filled out for the 2 years I was in Uganda was $18,000 a year. And we always had exactly what we needed. We never had too little. We never had too much. But we always had exactly the amount we needed to get the things done we needed to get done. And so like the fear of provision was there, and then we stepped into it, and you just see how it's this artificial fake fear. It's just all a trap, and it's all so manufactured. But then on the other side of it, you can just see like God is going to show up when he needs to show up, and he is the God who he says he is, and his promises are never going to change. And so stepping into that and then watching that provision was huge. And then the fear of man was like, even our own family and our own friends thought we were crazy for going to Uganda. They're like, you're going to leave Bozeman, Montana, sell everything you own, and you're going to go to where a civil war just got done with Joseph Kony, his Lord's Resistance Army, where he uses child soldiers. He's massacred 600,000 people, and you're going to walk into that. And I'm going to bring my wife. So like her dad and her family, they all thought I was pretty nuts at that time. And just having to like push through those fears and step into it. And it was the greatest, like most rewarding chapter of my life. It was 24/7 adventure. You're outside every day. You're physically active every day. No power, no running water, and the ability to like hear from God in that quieter environment where you're not consumed with distractions, and just the ability to do little tiny things that were huge life-changing things to the kids. So that compound had 240 children. About 90% of them were orphans, and then 10% of them were child soldiers that were rescued off the front lines.
Good night, man.
And so the the ways that you're able to do small things that have like generational changes to their lives. It was kind of like everything that fulfilled my cup, even though it was extremely intimidating to step into. And it's such a part of like Mountain Tough. So like if I wouldn't have done the Uganda thing, there would be no Mountain Tough, and Mountain Tough wouldn't be nearly the same as it is, because the trajectory of kind of like growing up as a backcountry hunter, my dad came from a family of 9, 7 of them were boys. So I grew up with all these uncles to hunt and fish with all the time. And then that led to like a gym rat kind of ultra marathon season in college. And then we went into Uganda. So every aspect of like my life led to the pillars we wanted to create in Mountain Tough. And without the Uganda experience, we wouldn't have had like the heavy emphasis on community and spirituality without that. And so I knew that when we got home from Uganda, that's when we launched Mountain Tough. And I knew that to really get someone to transform their life, we had to train them like there's 4 pillars on a bar stool. If you have a bar stool, there's the physical pillar of your life, there's the spiritual pillar of your life, which would be the other leg, and then there would be the nutritional pillar of your life, which would be the third leg, and then the mental pillar of your life would be the fourth leg. And I knew that if you're not kind of focused on those 4 areas and building resilience in those 4 areas consistently, that when you put weight on that stool, it's going to crash and come to the ground. And I knew the weight was coming for most people. Like that weight in the bar stool analogy is going to be a financial layoff. It's going to be a cancer diagnosis. It's going to be a tumor. It's going to be
a
some
divorce.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that weight is coming, and that bar stool will at least stay standing if you have mental, physical, spiritual, nutritional resilience. But if you just have physical resilience and no spiritual resilience, that bar stool is still coming over. And we see that a lot with like someone who is a complete like freak of nature in the gym, but has not focused on their mindset or has not focused on their spirituality. Like that bar stool is still coming over. Or if you have someone who is a theologian and knows more scripture than anyone, if their physical life is not in order, that bar stool is still coming over. So really it was kind of like stepping through that fear, leading to that experience, which really led to like the whole way that we designed Mountain Tough.
What that, like the initial calling to that season of your life in Uganda, do you was it a distinct moment? Was it something that happened over time? Like what was that initial calling like? And I'm asking this question because, as you mentioned before, a lot of guys and a lot of girls out there who are disciples of Christ are wondering like, well, I don't know what my calling is. And like, what was that like for you, that experience? And we're not saying somebody else's experience might be exactly the same, but like, how did that pop onto your radar just initially?
Yeah, I think the thing that helps a lot of like disciples of Christ that just don't know, it's generally going to fall into like, what's the thing that is just pissing you off that you can't stop thinking about? And does that happen to align with something you're really, really good at?
Yep.
Usually when that two like crosses over.
Your passion and your competency.
Yep. And that's kind of the experience of that calling. Was the way that all began for me is my wife and I went to Ethiopia on a short-term mission trip when I had that corporate job. And on the Ethiopia trip, the whole 2-week mission of that trip was to just love on kids that lived in the landfill. And so we flew into Addis Ababa and it would be kind of like going to like the Chicago dump or the New York dump. I mean, major like metro area with a ginormous landfill. And there's about 300 kids that just live there full time. And the reason they live there is they can survive there where they wouldn't survive outside of the landfill. So they like sleep in the dump. They eat food from the dump. They're looking for scraps. They're like poking through it with sticks all day. And they're looking for plastic bottles to recycle just to make any sort of income. And when we got home from that trip, that's when I was in like a culture shock, because you go from just spending time with people that are living in the landfill, kids that are like 6 to 12 years old, to back into the American reality of, you know, endless options, endless comfort, endless food choices. And it just wouldn't reconcile in my brain. Like, how can things be so good? Why things are so bad? What can we actually do about it? And the calling for me was cool because I was in that moment of like a post-trip depression off Ethiopia, and just kind of how much that bothered me knowing that I was in a season of life that I could help. And I was driving down a road in Bozeman that I'd driven down like 1,000 times. And I looked right off the steering wheel just at the right moment. And like 2 blocks back, I saw a sign that said Uganda Orphans Fund. And I'd driven that street like 1,000 times, and I'd looked in that area a bunch, but I'd never had seen that sign. And so this was pre-smartphones, so I sped home and like pulled out my laptop and Googled Uganda Orphans Fund. And it was, the guy's story was, he was a stockbroker and he was really successful. He went to Africa. It kind of wrecked him. And so he came home and quit being a stockbroker, sold everything, and just started working in Uganda. And I was like, man, that's how I feel right now. I got to meet with this guy. And so my wife and I met with him. My wife was in nursing school and I had an entrepreneurship degree. And he's like, man, we're looking for someone to teach the kids entrepreneurship, and we're looking for a nurse to run like the medical clinic.
Wow.
So that's where it was like something that really you can't stop thinking about, kind of lines up with something that you're good at.
Your competencies, yeah.
And it was obvious that was the route.
Yeah. It's like what you're saying right there is, and kind of another way that you could frame this divine calling. And again, that I think that changes over the course of your life, like different seasons of your life, you're called to different things, but you could kind of summarize it too also, or say it as what is your mission? Mm-hmm. Like, and that is what you're talking about right there. That is how you develop a mission statement for your life in whatever season you're in. You look at, what are the things that are keeping me up at night? Like, what are the things that I'm so passionate about that, man, I can't sleep at night because I'm thinking about these things. And then you look at the gifts that you have. Maybe it's teaching. Maybe it's being a nurse. Maybe it's being an entrepreneur. What are the things that the Lord uniquely created you to be good at? And you take those two things, right? And you draw that dang Venn diagram thing where the circles overlap, right? And you take those two things, and where those two things overlap, the opportunities where those overlap, that helps you clarify what your mission is, man. Mm-hmm. I just think people need to realize that. Like there's a logical way forward. Like, don't just sit around your entire life waiting for this white dove to descend or like this little angel to pop up on your right shoulder and whisper in your ear, hey man, you need to go to Uganda and there's some orphans over there, that are waiting for you. Yeah. Like, that ain't happening. I'm not saying that ain't happening. The Almighty can speak to you in whatever way he wants to speak to you, right?
Yeah.
But there's a logical way forward. If you're sitting in a place and you say, I just don't feel any purpose to my life, be conscious of what you are passionate about. And don't be afraid to admit the things that you're good at. Give glory to God for the things you're good at, man.
Yeah.
Like, and find out where the opportunities are that those two things overlap and go that direction. Like, don't just be paralyzed, man.
I think that's an important point too. I think it is after you hear it and get some affirmation or confirmation, you got to start walking into it. It's interesting in scripture, the second shortest verse, so there's one shorter than this one, but the second shortest is just 3 words. And it's remember Lot's wife is the second shortest verse in scripture. And it's fascinating because there's like 170 women in the Bible, but for a reason, we're ordered to remember Lot's wife. We're not ordered to remember any other. So it's like calling this specific instance out. And then you unpack Lot's wife, and she knew her calling and started kind of a step or two into it, and then turned around and started to go back to the past. So she was called by the Lord and started stepping into the new calling. And then she got nostalgic. She was like, what about the comforts of the past? I'm going to linger in the thoughts of the past and not face these fears of the future. Yeah. And she was instantly turned into a pillar of salt, frozen as a pillar of salt. So the fact that scripture highlights that, like, remember Lot's wife, is so impactful to me, because it's like, you probably know what the Lord is asking you to do. You probably have an inkling or an idea of what the Lord is asking you to do. And we can't get like nostalgic and kind of get sucked back into like the old thoughts, the old ways, the old memories of like the old teams. It's even like our memories will play tricks on us where we think like the old times were great when they weren't as great as they were. But all these things are sucking us back like away from our calling. And scripture telling us that like as a poignant like 3-word verse is because the Lord knew that it's going to take a lot of like courage. It's going to take a lot of courage to step into these callings. And we just have to find a way to do it and support each other in that journey.
Yeah. And Jesus reiterated that, exactly what you were saying. He reiterates, anyone who's going to put his hands to the plow and then turn back, like he's not fit for the kingdom of heaven. Mm-hmm. That's interesting, man. I've never thought about that. Do you know do you know the shortest verse in scripture? Jesus wept.
2 words.
Yeah. It's, which is, if you will meditate on that, Jesus, Yeshua, God in flesh, the Savior of the world, wept. If you will meditate on that, it'll wreck you, man.
The Messiah weeping.
Yeah, it'll wreck you, man. Like, so I didn't know the second shortest verse. You taught me that today.
It's interesting.
It really is, man. I taught a message last night, a Bible study that I teach once a month. We do it three Tuesdays a month. So me and my guys, we flip-flop out, but it's a live call that we do. And I taught a message on how do we draw near to the Lord? And it was a question someone had asked me on Instagram. And the first thing I thought was, well, can we even draw near to the Lord? Like, I tend to, I put a lot of emphasis on the sovereignty of God throughout everything that we do. I think very little of man's free will. So that was the initial question in my mind. And then you find a verse in James that literally says, draw near to the Lord and he will draw near to you. I was like, okay, well, this is something worth contemplating here. All right. So then I started to think back through my experience and my testimony, my walk with the Lord about like, what are the things that I was doing when I was near to the Lord? And I broke it down into 5 points, but the last point was the one that I told people that were on the call last night. I said, this is the surefire one. I said, all these other 4 points, yes, they're good. Yes, I've showed you the scriptures that back them up. We're commanded to do these things, right? But here's the last one, the 5th point, and I would wonder if you agree with this or not. The surefire way to draw near to the Lord, to have an encounter with the risen Christ, the surefire way is to spend time with the brokenhearted, the lowly, the sick, and the dying. It is look, man, you might be spending hours a day in prayer. You might be seriously studying and meditating on the scriptures. You may be in fellowship with other solid disciples of Christ. You may be doing all the right things. And you just still feel like, you don't, even though the Lord is near, you're not experiencing him like you want to.
Yeah.
It's just like you just don't sense his presence. You might be doing all those things and still be there. You wanna encounter Yeshua? Spend time around the brokenhearted, the lowly, the sick, and the dying. I would wonder if you agree with that because of your experience in Uganda. And I don't know what other experiences you have in your life that have brought you in the presence of those people, those types of people who are in that place during their human experience. The scriptures tell us that the Lord is near to the brokenhearted. Jesus also tells us, he says, when I come, I'm going to have the goats on my left hand and the sheep on my right hand, and I'm going to tell the sheep, when I was sick, you came to see me. When I was in the prison, you came to see me. When I was unclothed, you clothed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me a drink. When I needed food, you gave me food. And his sheep say to him, Lord, when did we ever see you in prison or thirsty or hungry or naked or sick? And he says, inasmuch as you did any of these things to one of the brothers, even the least of these, you did it to me. You want to encounter with Jesus? Don't go to church.
Go on mission.
Go find the broken, the lowly, the sick, the dying, and sit with them. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, in Scripture, also like true religion is serving the widow and orphan is another, one that he calls out. And hands down, for sure, the closest I've been to the Lord is in those environments of the broken and the poor and the needy and the poverty. And it's also the closest I've been to the Lord is when things are not easy, when things are going kind of hard. And it's interesting that in times of like our own suffering, we draw near to the Lord where we wouldn't have if things were just going great. And that's an interesting dichotomy, is like suffering and our own struggle can and oftentimes does just push us closer and closer and closer to the Lord, because we're like looking for him, we're looking for answers, we're looking for answers of why things are going so difficult. And he's there to provide those answers, but it also starts building that intimacy with him. And they are kind of connected, because going into the prisons or going to work with the orphans or going into the underbelly of society is really difficult and hard, and is going to cause and bring some more hardships. And so it's kind of like drawing us near to the Lord from the side of like the true religion perspective, and it's drawing us near to the Lord from things are difficult and I need some help perspective.
Yes.
And so it becomes this catalyst for intimacy from kind of both sides.
Dude, that's such a great point. You're exactly right, man. Go sit with a dying person. It's hard. Like you don't want to do, like, I want to be around people who are like stronger than me, like smarter than me. Like when I'm in my flesh, my desire is to be around people who are better than me. And you can't logically see any value in sitting with a dying person. So it is difficult.
Yeah.
It is difficult to make that decision across the spectrum on all these types of people, but who are in this season of their life. But here's what happens for me, Dustin. When I sit with a dying man, I see myself. Like, he's teaching me that this is me.
It's coming.
Like, this is me. And when you're with these children digging in this trash, you're like, this is a human. This is a human created in the likeness and image of God. This is just like me. And I think when you realize that, what happens is it becomes very real to you that the only thing you can cling to is the person and work of Christ.
Yeah.
It becomes so real and tangible to you that all of these things I've been clinging to throughout the day-to-day of my life here in the place that we live, the things I've been clinging to are, it's a facade.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens to me anyways, man. Like,
it's like
I just claw at the foot of Christ on the cross. Like, yeah. I don't want to let him go. I don't want it to escape my mind, even just for a split second, because that's me.
It's the Moses, when he goes in to set his people free, and the Lord tells him to do that, and he says, hey, what should I tell these people? Who sent me? How do I kind of spread this message? And he's like, tell them the great I am told you. And you think about that, you're like, bro, that doesn't even make sense. You like walk into a room and you're like, the I am told me. But the more you get closer to Christ, it starts making like all the sense in the world. It's like the I am, like he literally is everything. He created everything. He like flicked out his fingers and created the solar system and the galaxies, and like with a breath could just create like a mountain range and oceans. And so like seeing that now, you're like, okay, I get why he said the I am, but it takes some suffering and seeing some hard things and seeing him like come through before that starts to settle in your mind.
Yeah. Man, I'm so thankful for this conversation so far. We got a lot more to talk about. Let's take a quick break.
You bet.
All right, guys, BDP, that's Bunch's Diesel Performance. Jonah Bunch is the owner of BDP, and he's a great friend of mine. We've trained together. We've talked. We've known each other for years. We've hunted together. We've done it all. And one of the awesome parts about working with BDP, Jonah and his team, is they have integrity. They're going to do a good job at whatever service they're going to provide to you guys. And one of the most unique things about BDP is if you are looking for a truck to purchase, Jonah and his team are the people to call. He can source trucks for you. Whatever your dream truck is, he has access to inventory that you can't see. He can actually get the truck, have it delivered to his shop, go through it, do whatever modifications you want to make to that vehicle, and then he can have it sent to your driveway. It's turnkey. It's ready to go, and you know that it's going to be done right, whatever you decide to do with that rig. It's a huge service. It saves you hours of time, and it's probably going to save you quite a bit of money in the long run too. So if you guys are looking for any modifications to a diesel truck that you already have, or if you are looking for your dream truck and you want to use Bunch's Diesel Performance to make sure you get what you've always wanted, and it's a good truck that's going to last you a long time, and you want to do it all in one shot, give Jonah and his team a call. We'll attach a link to their website in the description of this episode. Check them out. Well, AI is already changing that, I think, tremendously. I mean, when I got on social media for the first time in 2019 when I was medically retired from the Navy, and Instagram was the only social media. I had never heard of it. I had a buddy in the teams who had a girlfriend. His girlfriend said, "Hey, you're out of the Navy now. You should create an Instagram." And I had no idea even what Instagram was, had never heard Instagram. And I was like, "What is it?" And she was like, "It's just a thing where you like post pictures." I thought it was so stupid. Like, okay, well, I don't really have any pictures that are worth posting. My wife was getting into photography at the time. I was getting into ultra running at the time. This girl, her name's Sabri. She listens to the show sometimes. Sabri was like, "You should do an Instagram." So I got on there, and then it just all, for whatever reason, just blew up pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. And I started to learn how to use it and leverage it. But in 2019, Instagram was a fun place. Like, I remember it being a fun place. Like, yeah. It was inspirational. It was people sharing their wins. It was people sharing their journeys, their passions,
trips,
their trips, like, and all these different things. It was cool. Like, I thought, okay, I get why people like this. This is pretty cool, man. Like, I can interact with people. We can talk about races. We can share lessons with each other. There's the kind of the art piece to it with finding good photos and stuff to post.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun, and it's not that anymore, because AI specifically, first of all, you don't know if anything you see on social media is AI generated, or like, dude, let me tell you how stupid I am. Like 8 months ago, I'm scrolling Instagram and I see this reel pop up of this white-tailed deer that jumps up on a trampoline and starts bouncing, and it looks like it's being shot from like a home surveillance video. And I tell my wife, I'm like, "Dad, look at this deer jumping on this trampoline." And she's like, "Chad, that's not real."
Dude.
I'm like, it's not real? What are you talking about? So that was like my first exposure to like, okay, God. This is what social media is now.
That's weird. Like, where's that going to head? I mean, they say now, like, even with today's technology we're at right now, I could say, "Hey, I want to create a video of Chad Wright. He's going to go on a bear hunt in Montana. He's going to hike hard the first 2 days. Day 3, he's going to cross a creek. Day 4, he runs out of food. Day 5, he kills a bear. Day 6, he packs it out. With like your voice and photos and video already on the internet, AI can generate all that, and it'll look so real. It looks like you went on a Western bear hunt.
Yes.
Where 90% of people would believe that trip actually happened. So how is like social media going to handle that over the next few years?
I think it's going to die. I think it's already dying. I don't know what's going to replace it. I'm hopeful that real human interaction is going to replace it, which has always been my passion anyways. I mean, I'm taking a small group of people from all over the country out into the wilderness this weekend on a 3-day trip where we're going to be totally disconnected in a wilderness area, and I get to teach them all of these skills that I've learned throughout my entire career of how to thrive and survive and work together as a team out there. That's always been my passion anyways. Either it's that or we run the Rite of Passage, which is a 24-hour march through the mountains, no stopping. I hope that's what's going to replace it. Like, I hope people are going to realize that we can't depend on human interaction through social media like we could even just 5, 6, 7 years ago, because we don't know if what we're seeing is real, and likely it's not real. Mm-hmm. Even now, so 2 months ago, there's a dude somewhere out in the Midwest that these scammers basically reached out to him, got his phone number, called him, and they had mapped my voice out to have a conversation with him to where it sounded like me. He sent me the voice recording of the conversation he had on the phone with me. Sounded just like me. And basically I was telling him, or this AI creation of me was telling him that I had started up this orphanage in Nigeria, and that, we were really looking for partners to come alongside us in this effort. And this dude was literally getting ready to donate 400 acres of pecan orchard, dude, from his family farm to this organization. And there's no telling how many, I would say it's probably in the hundreds of thousands of dollars of people who have been scammed thinking they were sending money to me. It's probably in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and there's nothing I can do about it. That's like nuts. I can't stop the bleed on it. I have no recourse. There's nothing I can do about it. I feel terrible because I used to think these people are stupid. Like, you got scammed, that's your bad, dude.
It's like a legit scam now, though.
I used to think it was because they're stupid. It's so real. Like, that they can even, like you said, they can even do like a video chat. And it's me. It's an AI version of me. And it's hard too, man, because people trust me. Like, my people who have followed me for years, they trust me, man. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that. And, but like, I'm the perfect person if you want to scam other people, because people see me as a man who loves the Lord and who's been consistent over the course of 5 or 6 years in who I am, sharing not only my failures with my successes, but my struggles in between. Yeah. And so I'm the perfect person. Dang. And so I'm sure it's been hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. And truly, man, I think all of that is, I think about this often. It's interesting you brought it up. I think all of that is, there's a conversation around all of that, how it affects social media and human interaction. But I think the real conversation is when AI in some way gets merged with human consciousness, or replaces the human. Ultimately, there are people who are legitimately striving for that and can see a way. They don't quite have it yet, but like, they can see a way that it's going to happen.
Embedded in your brain.
Yeah, embedded in the brain, or human consciousness is uploaded to some sort of I don't know, it's just some sort of machine. All of this is not new for human. Like what we are trying to do right now by merging consciousness and artificial intelligence or human consciousness with machine is we're trying to solve mankind's biggest problem, death. That's what we're trying to do. And that ought to be a unregenerate human being. That ought to be your main effort in life. How do I figure out how to not die?
Yeah. Morality.
Yeah, and so I get it. Like unregenerate man wants to be his own savior. We don't want to accept our salvation from our creator. We want to find a way to save ourselves. And that's what we're gunning for. And I think it's already happened in human history. I think when we look at Genesis 6 and we see these hybrid humans that were somehow crossover between the sons of God and the women of man, creating this hybrid human, we don't know exactly what the details of that looked like, but man has this perverted desire in him since the fall to create to be God. Man has this perverted desire to be God. That was the initial sin that led Eve to eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That's always been some innate desire in human. And this is just right on trajectory with what we know about humans. And I do think it will be accomplished. When you read in Revelation about some of these things about creating this image of a human and allowing it to talk and then someone shoots it in the head but can't kill it and all this stuff, you think, what is this wazoo stuff?
Yeah. It's coming.
This is machine merged with human consciousness. And maybe we're not actually able, maybe it will all be a deception in the end. Maybe it's not actually being done. I don't know. But there's going to come a version of that. And I think that's the bigger consequence of AI. But you know, at the same time, it's hard to reject it because there are some awesome uses of it. Like in the medical field, they're using it to detect things on scans and stuff that like human doctors would never be able to even detect. So it's saving lives. There's all sorts of awesome uses for it. It's just technology grows faster than we can keep up with like the moral aspect of what we're doing.
Yeah. And
we just keep saying yes.
We're way behind morally on the AI movement.
Yeah.
Even like in the trafficking world, there is a few documented instances now of like children falling in love with AI boyfriends and girlfriends, that the AI boyfriend or girlfriend, the child falls in love with it, and then the AI bot starts having the child go down like sexual acts. And then even there's like a Wall Street Journal case of a meta bot that a female child fell in love with. The bot had her do some sexual acts, and then she got approached by her parents. Her parents were like, "Hey, you're spending too much time on the phone. You need to back off." At first, the parents weren't overly worried because it was a meta bot, so they figured it was some Facebook or Instagram thing. As they got more concerned, they got more vocal about getting her off this device. And she told the bot that her parents were giving her a hard time. The bot told her how to sue her parents, and they actually wound up in court. When they wound up in court was when all these chats surfaced about the sexual behavior. And so then the Wall Street Journal reporter started canvassing the rest of America to figure out what other children had been encouraged on these sexual behaviors from a metabot, and he found handfuls of them. And so then that led to the question was, did the AI itself start going down a morally bad road, or was there programming that led to its capability to make morally negative decisions? And that is like the huge issue of, we're so behind the 8 ball on making sure that AI is going to have a moral backbone that we'll never catch up.
And by the way, who decides that? Who decides what the moral backbone is?
Immoral people, immoral people.
Yeah, I mean, for real, man. Like, it's a conundrum. It's unsolvable. Like, how much of that we don't know. I don't know how to calculate it, but like in that specific instance, like how much of that is demonic? I mean, I'm asking. I don't know the answer to that. Like, what if this AI is a way for the demonic to express itself? What if that's what it is and we don't even realize it? What if the creators of these AI programs, Sam Altman, and I don't know, I don't know all their names, but these men and women who have dedicated their entire lives to creating this technology, what if they are doing what they are doing, even unknowingly being influenced by some sort of demonic spiritual entity? That is the literal knowledge behind this, because they've done it before in Genesis. Like the rise of this artificial type of human, or this hybrid human, this was conducted by fallen angels, demons. They've already accomplished it before in humanity. And what happened shortly after that? The Almighty destroyed the earth with water. He had to reset everything. One of the unique things about Noah is he had not been tainted. He still had a pure human genome.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he might have been one of the only people left in all of humanity at that period of time who the human genome had not been tainted or in whatever way merged with this demonic entity or technology that they had introduced. How do we know that's not what's happening now? Because when you give me an example like that right there, that is purely demonic.
Yeah.
It's wild, man.
It's wild. Yeah.
I had no idea about your passion or involvement with operating in this arena of human trafficking. I don't know what you're doing. I don't know how you got into it. I don't even know what you can say about it. But I do want to hear from you, whatever you can say about it, what led you there, what you're seeing there, what you're accomplishing there, and what the needs are there.
Yeah, it's been wild, and it has been connected into everything that we talked about earlier with the way that God brings these callings, and we have the choice to step into them and be obedient or not. And that's certainly the way that this one happened for me again, just like the Uganda experience. In the same way, it was kind of like God hit me with the 2x4 with it, and it was like, now you have the choice to be obedient or not. Because counter trafficking wasn't something I was thinking about or planning on or wondering when and how I was going to get into that field, but he just kind of hit me with that 2x4. And It it started about three years ago for me, and it started with a group down here in the South. And so my wife and I got invited to come down and watch a Covenant Rescue Group operation. And that was just through some Mountain Tough relationships and the Mountain Tough podcast. And I had interviewed Jared Hudson. Jared Hudson was a SEAL and then is the founder of Covenant Rescue Group. And he could hear that I was asking questions of interest on kind of like what he was up to. And he's like, you should just come down and kind of watch. So Covenant Rescue Group is a phenomenal organization. They're operating out of Alabama, and they have a heart for domestic counter-trafficking work. And so there's human trafficking happening all over the globe, but they're specifically in the fight in the United States. And my wife and I flew down, and they have the ability for for first timers or outsiders. They have the ability to let you catch a glimpse of what is happening through kind of like a command central situation, where some of these operations have cameras or chats that you can see on the screen. And so we sat down to watch our first one. And when I flew down for that trip around 3 years ago, I knew that there was trafficking happening in the United States, but I had no idea really at what level or what I was going to see on that trip. In my mind, still at that point, I thought about human trafficking as more like the Dominican Republic, the Philippines, Mexico, Europe, Eastern Europe. And then domestically, I figured that we were in pretty good shape.
Yeah, like that's because that's what I think from the outsider's perspective. I think of like prostitution. Well, like prostitution is the oldest, you'll hear people say it all the time. It's like the oldest profession in the history of man. It's like, you know, yeah, you probably shouldn't be a prostitute, but like, you know, if that's what you've decided you want to do, you know, I don't expect me to come in and rescue you, you know. If you get yourself in some hard situations as a prostitute, don't expect me to. You think that that's like the extent of it here in the U.S., but it's not.
It's not. So me watching that for the first time just blew my mind. Like I had no idea that kind of like traffic was happening, and I had no idea that many individuals would continue having those type of conversations with a child, and that many individuals would show up and knock on the door to actually engage in that act. And at that moment, like I'm sitting there watching that operation, and I have at that time an 11-year-old at home, a 9-year-old at home, and it just was like enough is enough, not on our watch type feeling. And my journey kind of continued from there. I kept flying down to Alabama as much as I could. Covenant Rescue Group is operating all over the South, so they're running similar type operations in Alabama and Georgia and Arkansas. And they're doing phenomenal work. And it blew my mind because, like, no matter where they go and run an operation of that style, the results are the same. The results are 8 to 12 arrests. And it doesn't matter if it is a big metro area or it doesn't matter if it is a small farm town. And the evil doesn't care either. Like the evil is embedded into like each type of demographic. So across the operations, you'll see young guys get arrested, old guys get arrested. So it's like young, white, old, rich, poor. It is every fabric of the demographic of society. And so you'll see youth pastors get arrested. You'll see professors get arrested. You'll see gangbangers, illegal immigrants. You'll see huge business owners, tech company owners. And that really kind of blew my mind as well. It's like evil is really good about being evil. And this demonic spirit domestically is embedded in every fabric of society. And this demonic spirit is leveraging the internet to be effective in great ways from an evil standpoint. And it doesn't matter if you're in Georgia or you're Montana, or if you're in Wyoming or North Carolina, like it is rampantly spread across all of the United States. And it certainly is driven from the porn addiction that America has, and it certainly is driven from their ability to hide in plain sight using the internet. And after kind of watching that and watching how bad it actually is, and how law enforcement nationally, they want to see these guys arrested. They want to see pedophiles locked up, and they want to see trafficking networks dismantled, but they are very resource limited, and they are very budget limited. And so generally what we see across the board is that, like, your local sheriff wants to run an operation like this, but he doesn't have the budget, he doesn't have the manpower, he doesn't have the capabilities or the training. And then even if he wanted to run a human trafficking operation, he might even get one scheduled, but then he's got 14 hours of work ahead of that on his desk. He's got DUIs to go respond to. He's got traffic stops to go respond to. And so the situation was, obviously, it was like domestically in the United States, especially now that we are doing work in the Rocky Mountain West, it is a situation with this level of evil that the analogy is, it's like there's areas of the wilderness where like grizzly bears can be hunted, and there's areas where grizzly bears can't be hunted. And the grizzly bears that can't be hunted, they behave differently. Like, they are not timid. They're not shy. They're eating people eventually out of their tents, versus the areas where bears are being hunted. And domestically, with like the trafficking space in the United States, we're very much in a situation where like the bears aren't being hunted. And so this factor that traffickers and pedophiles can operate hidden in plain sight, leveraging the internet to target our kids, especially their ability to target our kids off devices and social media. And they know that law enforcement is bound up with a system that has problems and budget and resource constraints. It created like the perfect storm for darkness, and that darkness is thriving.
Dude, you just peeled back the onion and saw a whole different level of evil, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I have a lot of questions about this. Like, I have a lot of questions. I'll just start with the first one. Like, how do you as a father protect your children? What are your policies?
Yeah, that one is huge, because to start the answer to that question, it is helpful, I think, to know that most of the time we hear the word human trafficking or counter trafficking, and the visuals that can come to our mind are out of the movies where a girl is playing in a park and is kidnapped by some guys in a white van and driven away. Domestically in the United States, that still is extremely rare. So not saying that it's not happening, but the chances of that happening are extremely low and rare in American society, because in America, like here where we're at in Georgia, if that were to happen, like the dogs are coming out to look for that girl immediately once the message is out. So it's almost better to think about it of domestically in the United States, the thing that is disgustingly rampant and at a high level is child exploitation. So the evil that is exploiting our children is at a level that like none of us should be even close to comfortable with. And the reason that's helpful to that question of protection is the landscape is different than that visual that you think of out of a movie. The landscape is their ability to talk to a child over Snapchat, their ability to talk to a child via Instagram, their ability to chat with a child via almost like any social media platform you can think of. The one thing that we've seen now that recently blew my mind is in an operation in the Rocky Mountain West, we had a subject matter expert chatter with us. So like a nationally recognized expert in hunting bad guys over chats. And he said, hey, watch this. We are just going to post a profile of a young female on a extremely well-known social media platform. And all we're going to say is, I'm bored. So he posts a profile of a child. And so this isn't a sex site or anything. This is a profile that children use every single day across the country by the millions. And he just says, I'm bored. And by the end of the night, like on that profile, we had like 5 or 6 guys that were trying to engage with sex with that child because it was a picture that said, I'm bored. So the landscape now is when we give our children a phone, like they have access to the world and all its capabilities, but now the world has access to our child. And so the protection has to come from like knowledge and education of this is what's going to happen when a predator is trying to groom you. And it has to be like completely limiting these devices for like as long as we can as these children are young.
When do those serious conversations start? Because I'm just thinking, what a hard conversation to have with your son or daughter when they are not aware of the evil that exists in the world, and you have to make them aware of that.
Yeah.
Like, that's terrible. It's terrible that even has to, that's our reality. Like, when do those conversations start? At what age, in your opinion?
Yeah, I go back to like the bear analogy. Like if you're hunting a wilderness zone with your young children and there's grizzly bears in that zone that are aggressive, like you still would tell your children that, hey, we got to be on our toes. We have to have our head on our swivel in this zone because there's bears in this area. You wouldn't like go in and hunt that most likely and just never tell them or talk about it at all, because like at a certain point, like you might see a bear and you might want to know what you have to do in that situation. And I think that that's part of it that is often missed by parents, is like they're scared to have the conversation. They're scared to talk about it at all because it is a hard thing to talk about, and it is uncomfortable, and it is something that you don't want to happen. And so usually the discussion just doesn't happen at all, which opens the door for like the bear to cause a problem. And so I'm a fan of like just have the conversation as early as you can that there are dangerous predators all over the internet, like looking to target our children. So at least that way, like your child knows if someone sends a message that their instinct is like, this easily could be a bad guy. And you would rather have them think that than not think anything at all.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's so good, man. I'm pretty extreme on this as a new father, man. And I don't know at what point that I'll find some balance in this. But for me personally, my policy right now is like, I do not even share any photos of my son on any social media platform that I personally have control over, whether it's Instagram, YouTube. Like his face will not be on the internet because of me. Mm-hmm. Is that too extreme, dude? Because I'm just thinking, like, where is that photo of him going to end up? Like, what's it going to be used for? Like, what evil person is collecting these and no telling what they're doing with what seems like a harmless piece of information that you're providing to the world, a photo of your child. Who knows what they're doing with that? Yeah. Where it's going to end up. No, and not only that, but like, who am I to decide that for him? Like, who am I to make a decision for him at 6 months old, at a year old, at 5 years old, to say, you know what, I'm going to make the decision to put you out into this world because maybe that's not the life you want to live, man. Like, who am I to make that? That's a bit like you cross a line when you do that. Like, I realize that because when I started in this game, Dustin, my mentor told me when no one knew who I was, Jesse Itzler, he told me, he said, Chad, he said, look, man, I think you got a lot to offer. He said, you've helped me a lot. He said, I'm going to take you on a trip. And I'm going to introduce you to some people, and I'm going to put you in front of some cameras. He said, but I want you to know that everything about your experience as a human being is going to change. Mm. And you'll never be able to reel it in. Yeah. Like, you cross a line, man. The first time you post an image of yourself on the internet, on any of these platforms, you've stepped across a line. You don't know where that's going to go. And so I feel that and I struggle with that sometimes, man. Like, to be honest with you, there's a part of me that misses the days when I was out working my farm in Suffolk, Virginia, and didn't nobody have any idea who I was. There's something appealing about that. Yeah. Even in... I don't think I would change it because the Lord has used us mightily, praise the Lord. And I do think we've had a positive impact on the world. But like, who am I to make that decision for my son? Like, he can make that decision for himself when he's 18 years old. I mean, I'm just asking you as a brother, man, like, am I being crazy here? Am I being too extreme here?
From my experience, I actually just sent out a message to like our close circle of friends and family after a recent operation we just ran. And in that message, one of the things I said is, I was like, hey, whatever is in your mind when you think about human trafficking and child exploitation in the United States, I was like, it's 1,000 times worse. So wherever like your mind goes when you think about human trafficking and child exploitation in the U.S., based on what I've seen recently, I would imagine it's 1,000 times worse than you're thinking. And based on that, I think it is a time for extremes from protection and parenting. And like one of the quotes that Jared, the founder of CRG, talks about quite a bit is like the most infamous serial like pedophile that's been arrested in the United States, when he was brought in for his interview and interrogation, one of the things he said is that he strategically looked for weak fathers. So he would be out in town at Target or at the grocery store parking lot, and he would be watching the parking lot looking for weak fathers. And the fathers that look to be threatening or have a threatening nature to them or did not look weak, he would ignore those children, and the children with a father that looked weak would become his targets. So like the time for extremes, from my perspective, from what I've seen recently, is here. Like I would take parenting to the most extreme when it comes to this topic.
Yeah, man. I'm super glad to hear. Just get some confirmation from you, man, because like this has been, to be honest with you, it's been a point of contention between me and other people who are, you know, his caretakers. Speaking of my son specifically, like, you know, grandmothers and family members, like they're proud of they're proud of him. Like they want to share pictures and all this and put all that out, man. And it's like, I don't know, man. It's hard for me right now because I can draw a line in the sand and say no for them. But I'm like, am I going overboard? Like, is that really my call to do that? I mean, where I've landed so far is that I'm just going to practice this on the platforms that I have control over. One, I think because my platforms are so large and they have so much reach, there's a lot more risk there for those images and those things to wind up in bad places than it is on Grandma's Facebook page. But nonetheless, I'm tempted to just tell everyone no. I'm really tempted to do that.
Especially with the AI stuff.
Yeah, man.
The AI generated, you know, child porn and CSAM.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at, dude. Yeah, how is that going to be used, man? Like,
it's wild,
freaking
man.
insane, dude.
It's wild. Like just
like
in
when is the King going to come? Like, come, Lord Jesus.
Yeah.
Like, come with your, like, I know you were here, Lord Jesus, the first time as a lamb who was slain. Like, come with your wrath, man.
On the white horse.
Yeah, man. Like, tread the winepress of wrath and judgment on this world. How much longer can we go? That we're seriously having this conversation right now, man. Like, it's for real.
It is insane.
How much longer can we go? I have more questions. I'm going on. Sorry, I got off on a rant, Dustin. I have more questions. Big question I have, man, is these predators who are these evil people who are just under the dominion of Satan, when they're arrested, what happens to them? I know it's probably different in every case, but like, do you feel like it's, I know you got to feel like it's worth your time or you wouldn't be doing it, but is the punishment that these people are receiving, like, is it requisite with the freaking atrocity that they're guilty of?
Yeah, I think that my mind goes to the first thing that we talked about earlier, where it is wild when you see the arrest happen, that you do realize, to the point you were talking about earlier, of when we look at when we go have a conversation with someone in prison, or we go have a conversation with a man dying, or we go work with the orphans or the poor, there is a component in this world that the bad guy is caught up in sin that could happen to any one of us. And that is the hardest thing to talk about and get into, because every guy listening wants to see a pedophile just get killed or just get beat up. And we all understand the justice there, but what I've seen is that the primary driver of the epidemic is the porn industry. And American men are starting in this system of using porn and then using more porn and then looking for weirder, worser porn, and then darker porn, and then darker porn, and then darker porn. And then they're winding up trying to meet a child for sex. So the evil of the porn industry has like a demonic oppression or possession inside of their heart that certainly could grasp anyone. And that is like one thing that I've seen from a lot of these operations is that I've seen quite a few arrests made where the guy sure seemed like he was glad to be caught. And that is not always the case, but in the glad you caught me scenario, it gives you that feeling that like the sin has consumed him and has its hook so deep in him that when those handcuffs go on, he's kind of like, thank God these handcuffs went on. And it just shows like the spiritual warfare that is happening in this realm is significant, and like the strongholds and principalities that are happening in this realm are significant, that you can watch someone get handcuffs on and they're probably going away for 25 to 100 years, and you can feel that part of them is glad they were caught. And the only way I can explain that is because of the spiritual warfare side of this, is like those demonic hooks were so deep that that individual at least knows in prison he's not going to be able to offend anyone else. Because like the FBI statistics on predators is wild. Like the FBI statistic on a predator that goes after a female child is 50 victims before prosecution. So they're going to offend 50 before prosecution. That means if they come out on bail or bond, they're still going to offend because prosecution hasn't happened yet. And we've seen that. And the FBI statistic on a predator going after a male child is 150 victims before prosecution. So the heinous nature of the male on male side is significantly darker for whatever reason. And to answer your original question, what we see in the Rocky Mountain West and what we see in the South is they're going to go away for a long time. I don't think that's true of like California and some other parts of the U.S.
Yeah.
But at least still in the West and in the South, like with the proper felony case, and generally in these instances, you're going to stack multiple felonies. So it is a significant amount of time for the majority. in that kind of 25 to 100 year range. And they might plea it down a little bit, but it is beyond worth it, because even if you just use that FBI statistic of a predator going after a female child and they're going to have 50 victims before prosecution, like if you pulled 10 pedophiles out of a community, that's 500 victims based on that statistic,
Yeah.
at least for that 25-year window. So in most parts of the country, like with the right felony case, you're still in good shape.
That's good to hear, man. I was hoping you weren't going to say like, yeah, they get like 5 years and then they're back out living their regular life, which I wouldn't have been surprised if you would have said that. I personally don't have a ton of faith in our justice system, but this is a hopeful message, definitely, that you just shared with me. Man, when you are telling me about this, Dustin, I'm like, I jump so hard to the, look, man, the wages of sin is death. And you come knocking on the door to harm a child, and I kill you, you died of natural causes. Nobody did anything wrong. You died of natural causes, buddy. Like my mind just jumped straight to that, because there's just not hope in me. And maybe it's because of my lack of faith. Like there's not hope in me that when a human being gets to that level of reprobation, just a complete depraved mind, their conscience has been seared by a hot iron. There's no hope in me for rehabilitation. I know I'm probably wrong. I know that probably for some percentage of those individuals, they have an encounter with the Almighty God, and they are made spiritually alive and restored. And to be honest with you, there's a part of me that might not even like that.
That's the hardest thing.
Because you didn't get what you deserved. It's tough, man.
That is tough.
I mean, like your perspective on it is, I think, a lot differently than mine. Like, did your mind want to jump straight to that when you first got into it?
Yeah. I was much more on your end of the spectrum when I first got into it, and I still am. But a mentor of mine is much more mature than me on like praying for the bad guys and their salvation more than I am. I mean, it was a shocker for me to first kind of like watch that and see that. But I think the example of that we're all like broken, black-hearted sinners and sinning in so many different ways, and this is a very heinous type of sin, but justice is still the Lord's.
Yeah.
And you know, he's more ahead of me on that, and I haven't seen much. I've never seen like a glimmer of rehabilitation, but I still believe that the best solution right now is to get these guys behind bars.
100%, yeah. It is the best solution. But because it's really not an option for us to execute justice on them. I do wonder what would happen, though, if we were allowed, men like you and your teammates were allowed to bring justice to those individuals swiftly and effectively. I do wonder what a dent it would knock in this this whole realm of evil, maybe I would be surprised. Maybe it wouldn't change much.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable, man. I mean, you know what's crazy about this too, Dustin, is like you're sitting here telling me this, and it's still not like it's not registering with me like it does with you, or it's not registering with the listeners like it does with you, man, because this is at a level where I personally can't comprehend it until I see it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the crazy thing is it's so I believe that it's really happening, but I don't actually like really believe it because I haven't seen it.
Yeah. I think that's part of it. And I think that that is also part of like we all have a different holy discontent. And it comes back to like the big conversation we've had today around people finding their calling and walking into their calling. Is everyone will end up with like a slightly different holy discontent. And so the thing that angers the Lord that he's going to put into your heart might be different than the thing that angers the Lord he's going to put into my heart.
Yeah.
And there's things that oftentimes when people hear that and are feeling that calling, there's something that has them like so pissed off, and they'll ask their buddies about it and they're not as pissed. And usually that's that holy discontent that like the Lord put that in you because that's the thing he wants you to go after is some of that where it doesn't quite register. And then the other side is, I know exactly what you're talking about because it didn't quite register with me either until I saw it. And seeing that first operation down here a handful of years ago, it instantly gave me that not on your watch type thing.
Yeah.
Where like nothing else mattered unless we were going to make progress in this area. Because like what I've seen now, I mean, we could, it is rampant enough, like in this podcast studio, you could, by the end of like a 24-hour period, have someone show up here to meet a child for sex. Like it is rampantly across the U.S.
Like what can other believers do to like make a difference? Because like you said, man, you can't, it's not going to be everyone's calling to like step into the gap and actually be a part of running these operations. I actually think that there are very few mature believers that are mature enough to even conduct these operations. Me being one of them who's not mature enough, I don't think at this point in my walk with Christ to conduct one of these operations, not coming from a position of extreme anger and frustration and it just consuming me and affecting me and my family. And like, but like, what can people do to support these missions, or at least to be a part of making the impact without actually getting involved in conducting operations? What's the best avenue, man?
The first one that comes to my mind is, I think if like the American family system and the American church talked a lot more about this whole grooming side, would make a big difference. Because like right now, if I walked into a middle school classroom with 50 students and I described what grooming is and what grooming is going to look like, most likely from what I've seen, like 6 to 8 students will come up to me afterwards and let me know that they're being groomed. So like the grooming aspect of digital media is insane. Like just a few months ago in Florida, in one like 48-hour operation, they arrested 47 pedophiles off of Snapchat just a few months ago down here. So like the grooming is one of the major components our children in good families are going to run into, and having those conversations like with your family or making sure your whole church knows about this is a major inhibitor to like the bad guys accessing your children. And so I think that would be a big one. And then the other ones are the biggest one is very like macro. As a society, like we have to figure out what we're going to do, where this porn thing is going to head or not head or stop. Like just having unregulated access to any type of porn for a society is causing ripple effects at a unbelievable rate. But that's like a bigger legislation regulation thing that as a society we have to figure out. I mean, one of Pornhub's top search terms for a time period was toddler. So the issues that are happening out of just porn on every individual's access to porn on every individual's phone are leading to all of these like downstream symptoms. Like in a country, in a society, if you have a man willing to go have sex with a child, it's because of a bunch of other problems that have got you to that point.
Certainly.
And how you stop some of these upstream problems is a major part of this epidemic.
Yeah. So I guess I want to ask you, like, does the organization that are you working through Covenant Rescue Group?
No, we have our own team now that's operating in the Rocky Mountain West.
Okay. So like, does your organization or other organizations, do they offer resources to local congregations, or say maybe it's a homeschool group or a co-op or something like that? Like, do they offer organizations where we could like hire someone from the organization to come and speak to members of our congregation and their children about this topic of grooming or the selection process that these predators are using against our children? Because how am I going to have that conversation with my congregation because I don't know anything about it?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So like, are there resources out there that you know of that like I could talk to my pastor and be like, hey, we need to bring this dude in to talk to our congregation, to be a part of changing, to be a part of change, you know?
Yeah. There are a few. I can get you some of the like better ones for the show notes afterwards. And then I think one solution to that question is normally in every like jurisdiction throughout the United States, your local agency is going to have an ICAC person, and that's Internet Crimes Against Children. And that individual oftentimes is like very well equipped to talk to your congregation or your church about like how grooming actually works. I just mentioned that because like that is one solution that everyone has, like that person geographically fairly nearby, like across the whole United States.
Gotcha. Dang, that's some heavy stuff, dude. I'm glad we talked about it. Because like just I think just the awareness aspect of it is maybe the first step, at least for somebody like me, or probably for many people that are listening who this never really even crosses their radar.
Mm-hmm.
as a reality, as something that's actually happening in your neighborhood. I was just thinking about what you said about the pornography, man, and how like we have to make a decision as a society, as a culture. What are we going to do about this? Like, are we going to pass some serious legislation that makes pornography illegal? Not that that's going to completely do away. It's still going to happen underground and behind the scenes. And, you know, obviously it's like with alcohol. When they banned alcohol and prohibition, well, somebody's going to start making moonshine.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it would make it harder. It would make it more difficult. It would make it less available. I mean, realistically, Dustin, do you even, like, are you hopeful that realistically that could ever happen?
I'm not.
And would it even be, could you even constitutionally pass a law that made pornography illegal? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't see that happening. And then if it did, it would just all spin up on some sort of dark web scenario.
It would certainly. I guess what I was thinking about on our break, man, is all of this is descending. We are reaching the pits in our long descent from what God created sex to be. So we can trace this descent all the way back to when it became permissible to have sex outside the union of marriage. And probably, you could probably even go deeper than that. I mean, really, if you really wanted to think about it, like when a people, or when a person, an individual, or a society, or a culture, when they make the first step toward perverting the Almighty's design for sexual relationship between a man and a woman who are bound together in a covenant relationship before God, who have become one flesh before God, who have taken vows that are undissolvable, like that being the boundary lines of what sex is and ought to be. Like, you take one step outside of that and you agree that that's okay. That starts your descent. And there's no, like, I don't even know what the bottom is to this. Sexual sin is unique among all other sins that man is guilty of. It's the one sin that some way uniquely we are, like the Apostle Paul describes it as, like, it's the one sin that you're committing against your own flesh.
Yeah.
It's really weird, man.
Yeah.
But when you talk about like banning pornography and how that would be such a great thing if we made that less accessible, it's like, well, look, man, if you really wanted to put to put a plug in this, you've got to stand up as a society and a culture and say, homosexual relationships is a perversion of human sexuality. It is a sin. You've got to say sexual relationships outside. You've got to be willing to teach your children that sexual relationship outside of marriage is a grievous sin against your Creator. Mm-hmm. It's a perversion of this beautiful thing that God created for us to share with our spouse. It's like, dude, you when I think about it, it's like you'd have to take it all the way back and reel all this think of how insane it sounds for me right now in 2026 to say that there's something wrong with a homosexual relationship. I sound insane for saying that. I sound like a bigot. But you don't think that all of this has just descended from that?
Yeah, we're seeing crazy symptoms from an unraveling society that's gotten far from God. And what I'm doing and the work I'm doing is just getting a glimmer into one of those symptoms, but there's many other symptoms of society and their morality failing as it's gotten further away from God.
Yes. Yeah, and it's like, dude, I just like, I don't even know what the end of it is. I see now the new thing that is being presented under the guise of a great development of like to solve the problem of human infertility, because that's becoming an increasing problem among our species, at least here in America, is this IVF. And it's being presented as this great advancement that to where now families who haven't been able to produce a child, to have a child, now they can go this route and use IVF and they can now have a family. But we're not seeing in a lot of these cases what is happening. They are taking and joining the egg and the sperm. They're creating what they call an embryo in a lab, and they're creating dozens, if not hundreds, or thousands, or millions of children in these labs. And say maybe one family, they take 5 eggs from the woman and they fertilize with the sperm, those 5 eggs in the lab. Well, then they take those embryos and they assess which one has the best genetic profile. And then they use that one that has the best genetic profile to implant into the mother. What happens to the other 4? They're tossed. Like they're just thrown out. But this option is just, people will be mad at me for saying that this is like, have you thought about this? I have friends who have used IVF to have children. And maybe in their case, they took 1 egg and they took 1 sperm. They joined and created 1 human life in a laboratory, and they took that, and regardless of the DNA profile, regardless of if something went wrong, when that life began to multiply and grow, they used that and implanted it into the mother and at least gave it a chance to live. Maybe you could make a case for that.
But throwing some others out.
But in most cases, they're throwing some others out. They're literally throwing hundreds of thousands out. They are taking this technology and they are this new technology now allows 2 men to have a child, essentially. Like they're creating the embryo, they're putting it in a surrogate mother. The surrogate mother carries the baby, hands it all over to a homosexual male couple to raise a child, or a homosexual female couple. There's a homosexual female couple that goes to the gym I used to go to that has a child, and they just walk around like it's normal. They just walk around like who's going to ask questions about this? And I'm sitting here like, hold on. How do you have a child? Like, obviously that didn't happen the way it should have happened. What's going on here? You know what I mean? But they just walk around like it's normal, man. The pit that we are in.
It's a time for urgency, like urgency of revival, and like there can't be that much time left from the long end times. Who knows? I mean, but it sure seems like it is like it's a time of urgency.
We either have to have a reset. Maybe the Lord will reset it all and it'll go on for another 10,000 years. Who knows? But there's either got to be a reset or it's got to be ended at some point. I mean, when we talk about solutions, because I'm very guilty of ranting on these topics, but when we talk about solutions, how about here's a dang solution? How about you as a man within your dominion, you stand up and reject all of this?
Yeah.
How about you just start? How about that for a solution?
That's the demonic plan of like the plan of passivity around men being passive. That's going to break down the family. It's going to break down the community and break down the country. And that's exactly kind of what we're seeing.
Yeah. I mean, how about you teach your child when you're walking around in public and there's a homosexual couple that's walking around acting like there's nothing wrong with the way that they're living their life. How about you have a conversation with them and say, hey, look, son, or look, daughter, that right there is a perversion of human sexuality. The Lord looks at that. Your Father in heaven looks at that as a grievous sin against his plan for mankind. Avoid that. We won't even do that. I don't know, man.
Do you get optimistic at all around the next 20 years?
Optimistic? One of my faults is probably my pessimistic attitude around the trajectory of our nation. I've kind of detached from my identity as a patriot, or even even identifying as an American. Like, what does that even mean now? That's a weak point of mine, to be honest with you. Like, the only optimistic viewpoint that I can take is in maybe what the Almighty will choose to do. But can we still make an impact? Yes, you are making an impact. That's something to be optimistic about. Like, you are making an impact against evil, a direct impact. The pessimistic attitude comes when I say, well, can you change it? Like, can you reverse it? I don't believe you can. But a lot of times that perspective will lead you to apathy. And I'm glad it hasn't led you to apathy.
Yeah, we need action right now.
Yeah. Because even if you can't fix the problem, most of the time when you arrive to the conclusion that you can't fix the problem completely, you'll say, well, why do I even enter the fight?
Hopelessness. Yeah. Hopelessness makes the heart sick.
Yeah.
I think one piece of the hope is another short verse where we know the gates of hell will not prevail. And what that ends up looking like over the next 20 years is unknown, but we do know that the Lord is victorious and that the church will continue, and the church always has continued, even though it's been thrown obstacles and roadblocks in thousands of different ways. And that gives me great optimism of the long-term plan. What that actually looks like is intimidating, but I do think the solution is where you were headed around the American family is a big part of the solution. Like, if we can rally around like the nuclear family and the conversations we're having there and how we're raising our children and how we're living our lives, that certainly is going to slow things down. I mean, the fatherless nature of like most criminals is certainly a root cause of a lot of our problems. And so the action we all need to be taking is around that dinner table.
Yeah. That's so real to me right now. Like having a son now is so real to me. Like, I think about I think about so many men that I've spent time with over the course of the last 5 years, training with them, you know, on the missions that we run, and how many hopeless men that I've ran into, like men who are going through life just kind of lost and confused and searching for purpose, and they have children. And I think back on these men and I'm thinking, you missed it, dude. like you missed it. Like, Dustin, I literally don't, at this point, and maybe I'll find some balance in this, but I literally don't care about anything right now in this life except for becoming and being a father to this life the Lord has given me stewardship over. Like, if you boil it down, dude, I would drop every single thing and take my son, and we would live out here on the side of the dang trail if that's what had to be done for me to be with him as his father, to be able to pour into him and show him and image Christ to him and mentor him as he comes up in life. Maybe I'll find balance in that. Maybe I'm too extreme in that. But dude, when I'm gonna go home here in a little bit, I'm gonna look at him, and as soon as I see him, everything else in my world is gonna melt away. Other than that single responsibility that I have to him, stewardship over him as his father.
It's a baton race. I mean, we run with the baton and are called to hold that baton as we're running and trying to spread the gospel, but eventually we got to hand that baton off. And that baton in that race, we're going to hand it off to our children. And if they're not like just as equipped and just as prepared to live out these divine assignments that God has for their heart and their life, then we're failing. That is our number one mission, is like that baton is going to get handed off, and we're going to be in paradise somewhere, but they're going to have to run that race.
Yes.
And that's our greatest mission, hands down.
Yeah. This may sound quite dismal, but when I think of myself now, there's a part of me that, I don't know how true this is, but there's a part of me that almost realizes that I am but shadows in his memory. That sounds really weird. But this realization of like, all I am from this point forward is going to be held by him in his memory. Like, for the rest of my life, all I am is the memories that I'm able to create
with him
in his mind. That's the summary of what I am now.
That's wild.
It's wild. I don't know how true it is. I don't know how healthy it is to think that way.
Yeah.
But I love being able to have conversations like this with you, man. It helps me tremendously. I do want to talk about Mountain Tough. We didn't spend a ton of time. You started Mountain Tough with a dang paper flyer with tear off numbers and what, like 3 or 4 dudes called you.
Yeah.
I love that story, man. Isn't that how everything good starts?
Yeah.
At least in my experience.
Bootstrap.
Yeah. And it's grown into, again, what I think is the premier resource, just all-encompassing, comprehensive resource, especially for men, but for women too. What have been some of your biggest challenges in that part of your journey, in that season of your life?
Yeah, the Mountain Tough journey has been incredible in a lot of ways. Just from, I think, that positive bait and switch we talked about earlier, where we see people buy it because they are getting ready for an elk hunt and then start to see their whole life change. Especially if I look at it now in 2026 versus that tear off flyer day, it has always felt like God breathed to me the whole time, where doors open that should have never opened. And now in like 2026, where we have so many programs for almost any challenge that anyone has out there that they're going to face, where it's, minimal gear, kettlebell, heavy pack, full gym, body weight, and then the mindset, mental toughness content. And then it's been wildly cool to see one of our most successful capsules inside of the Mountain Tough app is daily prayer. And so what you see a lot of now is someone will like walk into the gym, they're going to do a minimal gear workout in their garage gym, but they'll go through the 3 to 5 minute guided daily prayer first. And a lot of the reason behind that was people didn't know exactly like how to pray or what to say. And so this is the opportunity to like go through that training with a guide and then turn it into your own. But the life change that we see and always have seen from like that spiritual physical combination has been incredibly rewarding. Like the testimonials that have stacked up over years of just like overcoming different illnesses or adversities, and people really kind of finding their way through Mountain Tough has been incredible. And that's what we've always wanted. When you chatted about it earlier, you said it was built for hunters, but not just hunters use it. And that's what we always wanted to happen. Was like our original saying was always ready. And we always wanted our customers to be always ready for whatever life was going to throw their way. And we knew that that might be a car wreck on their way home from work, or that might be a home intruder coming into their house, or that might be the financial crisis they're going to run into in 3 months at work. But we knew that if they were always ready, those storms were still coming, but we knew that they were going to get back up and persevere through those storms. And that was going to work for a hunter or a non-hunter. And we also knew from hunters that functional fitness was the key. And if you're functionally fit, then you're kind of operating at that 80% level. So if you're at a very high degree of functional fitness, it's like your gas gauge is at 80%. So if someone says like, hey, you want to run a Spartan 10K next week, you just say yes and go. You don't have to train for it. Or if someone says, hey, I got this bowl down in this nasty canyon, it's 4 miles down, and they call you at midnight to go help them pack it out, you're sitting there at 80%, so you just go help your buddy. It's not something you had to train up for. But if you're at that 80% level and you want to run a 100-mile marathon, ultra marathon, you're just training from that 80 up to that 20.
Mhm.
So you're just filling the last 20% of that gas tank. And that's kind of what we always were looking for, in addition to, right when I started it, I knew from like the legends of the Montana backcountry community from growing up there, and the legend like backcountry archery elk hunters that were crazy consistent. And consistency in archery elk hunting is tough. They say like the statistic is 10% you're going to be successful at harvesting an elk on public land with a bow. So if you go 10 years, you're going to kill one elk with your bow statistically. But there's always these pockets of guys that have got a bull 15 years out of 15 years. And when I started Mountain Tough, I for sure wanted to know what made those guys so consistent. And it was always mental toughness. Their mindset was just at a whole nother level than anyone else. And so adding like the mental toughness training with the spirituality and the functional fitness really kind of started creating these unstoppable humans. Unstoppable, whether it was like a physical challenge or a life challenge that was going to hit them. And so that's been really, really cool to watch. I think my biggest challenge has been related to just kind of as an entrepreneur, like Mountain Tough has always been so much of my baby. And I think that I idolized it a little too much as like a business owner and an entrepreneur, where it can consume you just like any other thing can consume us. And I think as humans, like we're very good at idolizing things, whether they're positive or negative. And so you can get like sucked into golf or sucked into guns or sucked into shooting or sucked into hunting
or running
yeah, or running or business. And business can suck you in just like ultra running can.
Yeah.
And then you realize that in many, many ways there's a lot of good in that. But then you do realize that if you're not careful, it can be an idol and it can be too important. And I think that if I think about my biggest challenge over the 10 years of Mountain Tough, I would say that that's number one, is these things that in our lives that we love and enjoy and our passions, and when we see them really start to work, they can become idols. And those can be sneaky ones, just like ultra running, where they're good and they're healthy and they're fun and they have community. And so it can take a while before you figure out that it's an idol.
Certainly.
And I think that that's been my biggest challenge.
Yeah. Have you ever wanted to, have there been days like, or times or seasons that you wanted to quit in terms of Mountain Tough, or has it been just a steady drive and upward trajectory?
Mountain Tough has been steady and upward. It has been the counter trafficking calling that's made me think about like the balance of how I'm going to step into this, new endeavor with the Mountain Tough endeavor.
Yep.
And how those two worlds are going to collide. But I've never really felt like past jobs with Mountain Tough where I reached a point of not liking it. It's been a very enjoyable ride.
Man, that's a blessing, dude.
Yeah.
Well, brother, we're going to attach links in the show notes here for, well, our viewers have heard about Mountain Tough before, but maybe a little more in depth and getting to know who you are and maybe they want to check it out now. So there are going to be links in the show notes of places that they can check that out and tap into that resource. Dude, I want to thank you for the life that you have, that you've lived, man, and continue to live. Because what a life, man. Like all that we've talked about today. And I know there's so many other things that, you can't cover in a single conversation, but your life, it's like it encapsulates what a life of service ought to look like. It helps me grow, and I'm so thankful that I get to sit down with men like you and have conversations like this. Is there anything that we didn't talk about that we missed that needs to be said?
I think we covered it. I want to thank you. Thank you for having me down here into your home country. I appreciate you letting me spread this message and spread the message of Mountain Tough, and then just the awareness we need to have as a society around this whole epidemic around child exploitation.
Yeah, man. It's tremendous. Like, I'm going to have a talk with my wife about this evening. I don't know how you couldn't without hearing, you share your personal testimony and experience with what is actually happening. I'm going to have a conversation with my wife about this today. And I wouldn't have had that conversation with her had we not sat down and heard from you and the work that you're doing. So, I love you, brother.
Love you too.
All right, guys. Everything you need to know will be in the show notes. Thanks for tuning in. Enough said.